right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Please join us for the prayer led by Commissioner Ralph Thomas, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. Gracious Heavenly Father, we're just so thankful to be here today to do our county's business. We just ask you to be present with us and guide us in everything that we do. May we be much more than a community. May we find a way to be a family. In that, we know that there's times that we're going to disagree. There's going to be times that we agree. And we just ask that when those times happen, that we can find a way to be civil in that and just have just love in our hearts and respect for each other, and just cling to the things that move our county forward. We ask you to bless us and just be with us tonight. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wanted to announce for those of you here to speak on the Cager-Posey Road project, there is not going to be a vote tonight on that item. It's just a public hearing. You're welcome to speak. I think we have 16 at least people to speak, so I'm going to limit it to 2 minutes. But the actual vote is going to be on September 3rd. So there's no vote on this project tonight.
Randy, tell them there's a whole row of chairs back here, please.
There's a whole row of chairs, you said, back here.
Right behind Brent.
Right behind who?
Brent.
Okay. If you want to sit down, there's some chairs over there, in other words. All right, is there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I'm just advising on pull number from the consent agenda.
Okay.
On item 10.
Okay.
Let me double check that and make sure.
And just for a note in the future, I was told October 1st the laws on citizen participation are going to change. So after this meeting, we're going to move the citizens to be heard to right after the Pledge of Allegiance. If anybody wanted to speak then on the approval of the agenda or on consent.
Anything.
So from next meeting forward, the citizens to be heard is going to be at the very beginning of the meeting. Okay, any more changes to the agenda?
I'll have an operational update under my item.
You want under general business?
Under my item, it's just an operational update.
Well, remind me, because I'll probably forget.
Okay, I know you'll skip over.
Yes. Okay, is there a motion on the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, public hearing.
Yes, this agenda item requests approval to conduct a public hearing and consider adopting ordinance amending the historic preservation ordinance relating to the composition of the committee. Jessica Welch will be heading this up.
Need a motion?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'm not familiar with it.
I'm going to make the motion we approve to conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending historic preservation ordinance number 13-04 relating to composition of committee members. Second.
Okay. You don't have to talk if you don't want to.
I mean, do you need me
Nope.
to explain?
That way y'all all understand, right? It's just the composition of the members. Any more discussion? All for the motion? We already got one. All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved. As amended.
Correct.
Second.
Any more discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, Howard, item 10, do you want to pull it?
Check with it. So, I'm questioning the need for this, request.
I talked to David about this, and I think I agree with Howard on this. We'd be giving a county purchasing card to a non-county employee, and I think whatever purchases are necessary could be handled through the purchase order process. And this is after talking to David about it.
Well, as I understand it, it's a part-time employee, and also there is a method already in place to address those issues of purchases, as you said, through purchase orders.
I I just assumed that, Adam, you're on the TDC, I mean,
The problem we ran into is we have some outstanding invoices that have kind of lingered for a couple months and haven't been paid. We all know that we received a $500,000 grant from the BP funds, and so there's a lot of purchases that need to happen in a timely manner, and it would be limited to $1,000 purchases. Everything that would be purchased would come from TDC funds, not from general revenue. As we know that this board's going to have oversight over all of that. We're going to see all those purchases. We're going to approve that budget. The TDC would be required to approve every purchase, so no one's going to just have that card and be making those decisions by themselves. So, I think it's a way to just streamline the efficiency and save us time and money.
I think this was an issue before, though, wasn't it, with the previous
Yes.
TDC director, about having I wouldn't say unfettered use of county money, but having access to it. And you think there's a way it can be streamlined without going to a credit card type operation, or?
Well, we have $50 petty cash right now, but that does very little. And if you're purchasing something that's not face-to-face here locally, that's impossible to do anything with that. I think if we had problems in the past, it's a matter of oversight, that we need to be watching those items. And, with me being the representative to this board, then I consider that as one of my responsibilities that I need to be bringing to you guys.
What about if we raise the petty cash to, say, $500?
It would help in some regard, but then if we're purchasing, an advertising or something like that, and the company's in Atlanta, they're not going to want $400 worth of cash.
Will they take a purchase order? How are they doing it now?
Yeah, absolutely. And now everything is through the normal purchasing system.
So we wouldn't necessarily need to have a credit card, but you don't think the way we're doing it now will work?
Well, I was hoping David Moody would be here because he had the lead on that, but from what I understand, there's some vendors that haven't been paid that's been lingering for a couple months. I don't know the reason for that, but it's
Go ahead.
just a way for us to streamline that process.
Well, maybe we can call Mr. James up here and find out if there is a problem. For me, the accountability is a tremendous issue, and having, sometimes we have purchases in the county that get hung up because either certain paperwork isn't there, or, whatever the thing is, that's what that purchase order is supposed to be following, and the payment, of course, follows that. So having a set of eyes from the county looking at this, I think is good, but I'd like to hear from Greg James.
Greg James want to be heard from? More seats over here, folks, if you may just sit down in that back corner. Hard to see them, but they're there.
Well, first of all, what problems are you aware of in the TDC of not having payments paid in a timely manner?
I'm not aware of any. This is news to me that there are bills that have not been paid. Certainly not a delay on our office. It would be probably the transition between Pam and her leaving that has caused that delay.
Ralph, can we just leave it like it is and see if we can streamline it somehow? And should I make a motion?
I want to speak on this for a second. I agree with Ralph, and the reason I agree with Ralph is, as y'all know, I work for a state agency, and we also have to deal with purchasing vendors, and there's some people that also have the P cards, and whenever there's certain situations to where for a timely manner that you need to go ahead the vendor, pay the vendor, and I've seen similar situations happen like this many times, so I'm gonna support Ralph as TDC.
Can't though, would Debbie or somebody's P card pay that vendor, at least it's coming from a county employee? Can we just do that instead of giving this non-county employee contractor a P card? Just, if you need something paid for immediately, call Debbie and let her give them the credit card number.
The problem with that is Debbie is bound by that
then.
financially.
Huh?
She's bound by this. That
So use your card then.
Well, I don't want them using my card either.
I think that would, Mr. Chairman, I think that would be very reasonable if that person was answering to our county administrator, which is not the case here. And also to give exceptions to our county policy. We require a full-time county employee on our purchasing policy. I think it's going down a slippery slope, and we've already heard that there are no problems at the top here, and there haven't been unless there was this instance of a couple of bills in the transition that just took place. So there was no problem, there may not be a problem, and I suggest that we continue and have the TDC use the purchasing orders.
I'm gonna kind of default to David. I talked to him about this, put him on the spot, but he felt it may be problematic. Maybe not now, but it could get problematic in the future.
Well, like I said, I have all the confidence in Miss Virginia.
Absolutely.
And all that, and but if there's no promise that she's gonna be there for the long term, and as I said, that the only reason I had to turn it down was just, it's giving a card to a non-county employee, and that's outside of my realm of
Basically, most all businesses require a purchase order. If somebody that we're doing business with just doesn't want to do business with us because it takes a day or two to get that purchase order, then they probably don't want to do our business anyway. I think it's good business to, just like we've got outstanding bills right now that we have not paid, those would not be outstanding if we had a purchase order. So I think it just keeps us all out of trouble if we require a purchase order on everything going forward. That's my opinion.
Right, and Commissioner Thomas is correct that it is more efficient to have the card, because paying for media buys, et cetera, it is, that they normally take a credit card, but like I say, the problem that we had was just the fact of a non-employee having a county credit card. That was where we fell on it.
All right, is there a motion on this one then?
I would make a motion that we have purchase orders on all purchases.
And that would be not approved.
Yeah, we got the two options. Number 2 is do not approve an exemption to the purchasing policy, which is basically what you're saying.
Then I would make a motion we go with number 2.
Now,
Second.
hold on a second. If we had no motion whatsoever, then the motion would just die, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a make or break situation. It's not gonna stop us from doing business.
Raleigh, your second? Howard?
Urge citizens to speak on this.
There's 2 cards, but if we're not gonna move forward with it,
Yeah, if we're not moving forward on it, I'll withdraw.
you withdraw your motion.
I
Is
withdraw
there a
mine.
motion? All right, item dies. All right, planning and zoning.
Commissioners,
We've been ready.
Thank you. The first item is an application for site plan SP 1306. This is a quasi-judicial item. Therefore, in accordance with section 24.01 of the county code, each commissioner needs to disclose all contact received from interested parties and/or their representatives, lobbyists, or any third parties concerning the application, and any personal investigation or knowledge being relied upon. Commissioner Thomas?
None. I
Commissioner
talked with Mr. Roddenberry and also the homeowners association.
This is on the Talquin Site Tower,
Oh, no, I haven't.
I haven't talked to anybody on Taquin site tower, no.
of the communications tower, sorry.
No.
Okay. Anybody here who is here and going to speak on this item, including the applicant, please stand up to be sworn. We don't have an applicant here. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Too late.
Yeah, applicants, you got to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. Louis?
Commissioners, this is a request for site plan approval for the construction of a communications tower at 681 Wakulla Aaron Road. This is the location of the Talquin offices. There is an existing 120-foot tower. This would be for the replacement of this tower with a 350-foot tower. The Planning Commission heard the conditional use for this use on July 8th, and they voted unanimously for approval of the use. This is for the site plan. As we understand it, Talquin is in the process of updating its entire communications network, and they've been working on several of their towers in Leon County and this one in Wakulla County. The applicant is available to answer any questions. Staff is recommending approval of the site plan, which is option 1.
I make a motion that we conduct a final public hearing and approve the application for site plan SP 1306 based upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission and the findings of fact and conclusions of law made by the board and any evidence submitting at a hearing hereon.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
Yes.
Okay, Howard, go ahead. You want the applicant up here?
Sure.
You have questions for them?
Not really.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, yeah, but I will.
I have a
pose a
couple.
question to him.
I have a
Okay,
couple.
whoever y'all want to represent you. Yes, sir.
Right, so I don't have a question for you right now.
Okay.
So we'll be ready for the question of mine or Commissioner Thomas's. So we have a 400-foot tower at the Sheriff's Department, okay, which we're paying something like $30,000 a month for. Year. Yeah, sorry. Even be better. And that's 400 feet. This is our downtown, pretty much centered in the Crawfordville Center. Putting these high towers up, there's a need for them, but we already have one. And I would be more inclined to think that there should be a committee set up to look at a committee composed of the sheriff or his representative and the administrator or his representative and Talquin or their representative, and see if something can be worked out in combining the use of our present tower situated at the Sheriff's Department rather than putting another needle in the sky. So that's my suggestion, and I think we need as few towers as possible in our downtown area. We don't need another 350-foot tower. That's my position.
Is that something that's possible?
At this point, I don't believe so. Our tower loading is very specific. We're building a self-supporting tower that can withstand hurricane force winds. The amount of load that we have on this tower is exceptional. In most cases, it's not just a cellular dish there that provides Verizon service or Sprint service in the area. It actually communicates in a ring topology around the entire 4-county territory. This tower, the reason it is so high, it will be communicating all the way back to Hosford, and then from there, up to Quincy, and from here in Crawfordville all the way up to Bradfordville.
So you don't think the tower at the Sheriff's Department is structurally strong enough to hold your equipment? Is that what you're saying?
I can't say that with any great certainty because I haven't done the analysis of it, but I know that the tower that Talquin is building is, and we have our generator support there, and we have everything that we need to build that tower. We're willing to take on that expense. It will provide, communications throughout. It won't just provide network communications throughout the territory. It will also provide two-way radio traffic communications throughout the area. It'll provide, if for instance, the Sheriff Department would like a redundant site, we've got a tower that can stand it. I know that our tower is being built to the latest ANSI TIA 222 Rev G requirements, which are the latest and greatest. I'm not exactly sure when the Sheriff's Tower was built. I'm sure it's probably Rev E or Rev F, but ours are Rev G, I know that, which are the latest and greatest. And as we all know, as requirements move along and new revisions are put out, things become more stringent as they go. So
I guess the question is, if it turned out you could put it on the Sheriff's Department tower, would you be adverse to that? Even if this got approved tonight, and it turns out that you could, and I would think it'd save you money. I don't know that, but
There's a lot of recurring costs associated with co-locating on a tower, especially given the amount of dishes that we're going to be putting. There will be 2 6-foot dishes pointing to Bradfordville. It's an awful lot of wind load. There will be 2 6-foot dishes pointing to Hosford. There will be all the omnidirectionals associated with our smart grid network, as well as our two-way radio traffic. The sheriff's tower may be inundated at that point with ours. And again, there's a great amount of recurring cost associated with co-locating on a tower. As far as Talcott members are concerned, I have a fiduciary responsibility to look after that, and I feel like not having that recurring expense every month would behoove us.
I want to ask, if you were to get approval on that, how soon would you be beginning construction?
Our Hosford site and our Bradfordville site have received approval, and we plan to begin construction late August. So this one, I would say shortly thereafter, September timeframe. September, I believe there's a 30-day window where we don't need to be communicating, or we don't need to begin construction, because I think there's some type of appeal process, but,
If you build it, if you build it, and say in August or September, and someone in the Smith Creek area wants to use their cell phone, would it be bouncing off of your tower?
the Smith Creek, just for instance, Smith Creek folks, there will be it's my understanding there's a tower people are looking at already at the volunteer fire department there. So, but if Verizon contacts us and they want to put a cellular a group of dishes up on our tower, we will certainly oblige them.
Yes, Ralph.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Just a couple of safety concerns, and Louis might can answer one of them we talked about earlier. Our land development code talks about the collapse of the tower, and I saw the engineering letter that has a 140-foot collapse ratio.
Yes, sir.
I also noticed that Talcott owns 3 actual parcels there instead of 1, and so, you know, depending on how our code defines this, the subject property where the tower physically sits, your property line is, the fall ratio is outside of that 140 feet. It will extend past your property line.
Yes, sir.
Now, it doesn't extend past all 3 parcels as a contiguous group.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know if that's going to be a problem. That's number 1. And then number 2, and this is probably really not your concern because the land development code doesn't address it, but I wanted to bring it up that maybe we need to look at this going forward. That fall radius does not address hitting a structure, an occupied structure. And it looks to me, by looking at the aerial maps, then your building is about 90 feet, and you've got a 140-foot fall radius. And so if that thing fell just right, it's going to hit your building. Now, like I said, the land development code doesn't say you have to comply with that, but that just seems like a safety concern that we need to be concerned with, maybe moving forward and changing the land development code.
Yes, sir. The fall radius, the language is very similar to Leon County's. It does not specify that the tower can't fall on your own piece of property. I guess at that point, you built your own tower, you know them.
And I'm not worried about your building, I'm worried about, you know,
Right.
maybe my cousin that's working there or something. You know, the citizens that will be working in that building and might be there during an emergency situation.
Fair enough.
I'm beginning to feel we don't, 2 things. One is, we may not have enough information to act on this tonight. Second is, that concerns me is, I heard this representative say that if Verizon contacted them, they would be receptive to looking at them renting space on their tower. We have a tower, and we're paying out $30,000 a year because we don't have rentals up there, and our tower is higher than their tower. And whether this tower of ours would be compatible for their uses, I think is something we need to find out before we move forward. And I move to table this
We've
item.
already got a motion on the floor, Al.
You can't table it?
We've got a motion in a second. You can ask whoever made the motion if they'll withdraw it.
How's that work, Bob?
You could entertain a motion to table at this time.
There's a secondary motion? Okay, go
That's
ahead.
one of the exceptions.
Could I speak real quick to that point? The requirement for the co-location of your towers is a requirement in the Wakulla County ordinances. If you did not want us to entertain Verizon or Sprint or whoever else, we won't build it to accommodate that. But it is a requirement of the county.
What I'm saying right now is I don't think we have all the facts needed to move ahead,
You want to make a secondary motion then?
right, to table.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
Hold on, are you going to table it till the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to, before I...
Hold on, we got to vote on Howard's. We got to get a second. Is there a second to table? Okay, motion fails. Now we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion on the item?
Well, maybe some questions. Like I said, we can't hold you to moving it away from your structure, but is that even a possibility? I understand all your wires terminate in the existing location, and that would be additional concern for you, but is that something that you could do or were willing to do?
At this point, most of the engineering has been done. We've done the soil bores. That location is the most conducive location for what we have planned for that parcel. Obviously, everybody that drives by the Talcon parcel there knows that either we're going to plant corn there or we're going to build another building. We've got it where we need it to go so that when and if we build that other building there, we got plenty of room and we've got nothing holding us over.
How tall is the existing tower out there?
120 feet, sir.
And it says you're going to be lowering the one on 319 north of Blocks from 350 down to 140. So you're lowering one?
Yes, sir. That location right there, just north of Bloxham Cutoff in our Hilliardville substation.
And that'll get is that low enough where you don't need a light on it?
Yes, sir.
More discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, Louis. Please, if you're going to talk on the Cajun Posey Road thing, fill out a card. I want to go ahead and get them all in and get them collected. And we're going to limit 2 minutes each, and we're not voting on the item tonight. Let me reiterate that again. This is just a public hearing to hear input. We're not voting on it. We're voting on this September 3rd. All right, Louis, go ahead.
Hold on, please. This is application for change of zoning R13-02. This is a quasi-judicial. This is the first of 2 public hearings, as you mentioned. However, in accordance with the county code, each commission member needs to disclose any contact they may have received from interested parties or their representatives, lobbyists, or any other third parties concerning this application. Commissioner Thomas?
I spoke briefly with Mr. Floyd Roberts and have received numerous emails.
Okay. Commissioner Moore?
I talked with Mr. Roddenberry and the Homeowners Association.
Just staff.
I've spoken to Mr. Roddenberry, and I've also received numerous emails.
I've spoken to staff and received emails and phone calls.
On all the emails and any letters you may have received, we need to get copies of those for the record before the next public hearing. With that, if there's anyone here who is going to speak on this application, please stand up to be sworn.
Everybody that filled out a card, in other words.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you want me to make a motion to move ahead with the...
Go ahead.
I
You
make
have to
a-
have a motion to have the public hearing, so Richard's going to do
I
that.
make a motion that we conduct the second of 3 public hearings and consider the adoption of the proposed ordinance amending the official zoning map, amending the official zoning from agricultural zoning district to R3 multifamily residential and C2 general commercial zoning districts based upon the recommendation of the planning commission and the findings and facts and conclusions of law made by the board and any evidence submitted at the hearing hereon.
Second.
All right. We'll get citizens speaking. Scott Farrell, 2 minutes each, please. And please respect the time so we can get everybody in and out and say their piece in a timely manner.
I think it'd be a good idea to build it because in order for the county to grow, you need to have more homes and places for people to stay. And not only that, it'll bring more jobs, more in the long run, and then maintenance jobs afterwards. So I'm for the build, and that's about all I got.
Thank you. Now, remember, we're going to be voting on a zoning only. I know there's a lot of speculation on what's going to go there, but all we're voting on is a zoning to allow 8 units to the acre and C2. Geddes Barrow. If I hack your name up, please forgive me. I guess I got it close enough.
Yeah, my wife and I own the property right across Wakulla Aaron Road from the land that he's asking his zoning change on. So we moved down here to live in a single-family area. I moved out of something in Tallahassee about like that. I don't want some more down here. So I vote no against that.
Thank you. Mandy Farrell.
Hello, I'm Andy Farrell. I would just like to say that I am for the change. I know a lot of people are against it. I understand a lot of their reasons. Since I've grew up in Wakulla County my whole life, I've seen a lot of growth. I've seen a lot of things change. Everybody knows this is a really great county, and that's why a lot of people move here. And in order for that to happen, there needs to be adequate housing and all for people to move here. I think it's a little selfish to say that, for all these people, a lot of people anyway, that have moved down here for certain reasons, not to want, more available housing here. So anyway, I'm for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tommy Green.
Tommy Green. I live in the Fox Run subdivision, which, it kind of right there at this particular parcel. This is not the right place for this type of situation. There are places that are for this, but in the Fox Run, near the Fox Run area and on Wakulla Aaron and Cajun Posey, this is not the right place for this type of deal. We do need some growth probably, but not this type of growth. We can do single-family housing, and get by a lot better. We definitely don't need this type of business going on in that area. So y'all need to think about that a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Floyd Alford.
Hi, I'm for the approval of the change, because we do need more places for people to live, because Wakulla County is a bedroom community, and I think it would bring a lot of new people for taxes and just growth. That's it.
Thank you. Elva Hoffman.
Hi there. My name is Elva Hoffman, and I'm for the proposed rezoning. I understand that this isn't a vote on what will be built there or what won't be built there. This will just give people the opportunity to propose different opportunities for the county, and at that time, I guess we can all decide. But I am for the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny Adams.
My name's Kenny Adams, grew up here in Wakulla County, and I'm for the rezoning and the growth. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Bobby Bailey.
Hi there, I'm Bobby Bailey, and I grew up in Wakulla County all my life, and I am for the change of the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, is it Nigel Shepherd? Yes. Okay.
My name is Nigel Shepherd. I live in the Fox Run subdivision over there. I'm looking at the map and your zoning for R3 and C2, and surrounding area is all single-family residents. So right there, you have a square peg trying to go into a round hole. So I'd like you to not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Crystal Sims.
Hi, I'm Crystal Sims. I support the rezoning to R3 and C2 for the property on Wakulla Aaron and Cajun Posey.
Thank you. Mike Burlock?
I also live in the Fox Run subdivision, and it seems like what we're being asked to do here is to take what could become a more commercial development and put it into a residential area. I also moved here to live in a single-family area, and it seems like there's more appropriate sites along 319 that we could put commercial development rather than into a single-family area. So I'd ask the board not to approve this.
Thank you. Dennis?
My name's Dennis Wooden, lifelong resident. I'm for this change.
Good job. Troy Todd?
My name is Troy Todd. I live in about the 7th lot on the east side of the subdivision. It's gonna be right in my backyard. I moved down here from Tallahassee to get away from the chaos, and now it's gonna be right here on top of me. I'm definitely against this. I think there's a lot of other places this could go. If this was single-family housing that was being proposed, I wouldn't have an issue with it, but I don't think that's what they're planning to go here. So I would ask that you, before you vote on this, to just drive down there and look and envision what's going to be there, because it's not going to fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie Mayer? How was that last name? Sorry. That's pretty close.
Yeah, fair, whatever. I'm against this for the simple fact, if you want all this, would you like all that in your backyard, 8 houses to an acre? And I would like to know how the roads are going to be able to handle this when we have enough trouble getting in and out as it is to get to town. I mean, when we work in town, it already takes you 45 minutes to an hour. So have you thought about that?
Thank you. Justin Cross?
My name is Justin Cross. I live in Fox Run Circle there. I am against this. I believe something like this is more a case of spot zoning. Does not fit with the surrounding area. There's plenty of places down on the 319 corridor that this would fit in a lot better. I just don't believe this is a good idea. Nobody in the subdivision wants it. We are really against this and hope you will carefully consider it before you make a vote.
Thank you. Linda Keys?
Thank you. I'm here to oppose this development based on facts that the entire area surrounding it is single family. There is nothing less than a ½ acre with a single family up to 88 acres with a single family home. This is not the place for 79 apartments. The intersection is not sufficient for that amount of traffic flow. There's no reason for a commercial property there. It's a mile to Michelle's store, 2 miles to McDonald's, Walgreens, Winn-Dixie. It's a couple of miles to the Dollar General store. I've also spoke with several realtors in the real estate area, in our area, who are telling me the clients they have coming to them wanting to move to Wakulla aren't looking for apartment complexes. They're looking for single-family homes where they're not living in that anymore like they were in Tallahassee. They're trying to get away from the urban sprawl. What we're requesting of you is to keep it consistent and compatible with what's in the existing area, which is single-family homes. I also would like to address stormwater runoff. I've not seen anything that is addressing the stormwater issue, and I'd also like to ask each commissioner this evening, since it is an agenda item, to state if you are in favor or not in favor. And I also would like to mention, there was a mention from all of you of getting emails, but I personally hand-delivered to your offices a petition with 52 signatures opposing it, letters from myself and my parents with our reasons for opposition, and there was a second petition with 20-some signatures that I also was told that you were in receipt of, and none of that was mentioned this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Gene Cutchin?
Members of the board, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Gene Cutchin. I'm here to support the rezoning of Floyd Roberts to 11 acres on the corner of Wakulla and Acacia Posey. Different people have different needs and wants for housing. There are those who want to live on a piece of property in a mobile home. Some want a home on large acres of land. Some want a home in a neighborhood. Some choose to live in an apartment. Citizens should have all these types of housing available for them. Many people object to change. I'm hearing some of the same objections now that I heard when I developed Fox Run. I was fought tooth and nails, and these people in Fox Run have nice homes. Fox Run subdivision is an asset to the county and the community, I believe, and the community. And I believe a new apartment complex in this area would be an asset to the county and a nice community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board.
1, 2, 3.
Howard, do you want to talk on the issue? Or do you want to wait till the next public hearing?
Well, this is, I'll ask, this is,
Come on, go ahead. Just come on up here and talk and then fill a card out when you're done, okay?
I did swear in.
That's fine.
If not, I can just swear to tell the truth. My name is Loretta Johnson, and I do own property on Fox Run, so I pay taxes out here. We did live here for a while. I noticed everyone that said they wanted growth out here kindly did not say where they lived, which I thought was most interesting, but everybody that was against it said that, gee, they lived on Fox Run. Isn't that interesting? You know, nobody that lives on Fox Run wants this. Isn't that interesting? Don't you think you ought to listen to the people that live in where you're going to be putting this? That's going to be who this is going to be affecting. Don't put it where it's going to be affecting those people. You know, this is going to be your legacy. You know, you're going to be remembered for this. If I were to elect you, these are the people that are going to be voting for you. They're your neighbors. I live in Tallahassee. You know, they're your neighbors. Your name's going to be mud. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
okay, great. So this is not only a zoning change. It is only a zoning change, but it's not only a zoning change. What it does is it gives the ability of, if this zoning change is approved, to have 8 units per acre for development. That's what the real issue is about, and how this either is or is not compatible with the land around it, which is 1/2 acre or greater is listed. It looked like we're taking a section of land that is maybe 1/3 the size of Fox Run, and we're putting maybe the same number of units or more in. I don't know how the statistics work out, but it'd be an interesting thing to find. So there's people that come down and buy a house and think that they have some assurance that we're going to be following our zoning and comp plans with some expectation it's going to be stable, have an expectation to be protected. And they have rights too. So that's all I'm saying at this point.
I'm going to hold my comments till the final hearing.
Harry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I will probably shock some people, so don't everybody fall out at the same time. I'm going to vote against this. I've been accused of being a developer, and that's probably going to be true at some point in time. But you can still be a developer and still support good development. This is outside of similar properties. There's not any properties close by this that are similar to this. This is basically spot zoning. There's not anything out there within about 2 miles that's similar to this. I've told engineers, I've told surveyors, and everybody I can tell that if we need to, apartments need to go up and down 319 or in the close proximity to 319. I will support apartments if they're staying in the proximity of 319. If this was a build-out, if apartments were already built out that way, I would say this would be in whatever. But if you put this, if you change this zoning, there's not any difference than having apartments in any development anywhere in the county, because there's not anywhere that's any different. You can put this in you can change, if you do this, then you can go to the same thing anywhere else. It's still the same thing. So I support apartments. If they're going to be on 319 or north and south on 319, that's going to happen, and I'll support it at that point. But I will not support apartments, duplexes, condominiums if you jump over where they're already there. And I'm sorry if I disappoint some people who, whatever, but that's the way that's my opinion.
As a board, we're charged to make our decisions based on the comp plan and on the future land use maps that are currently in place. For the benefit of the public, I'd like to see if maybe we can get staff to address that, specifically the future land use map. If we approved what's in place right now and allowed Mr. Roberts to build in accordance with the future land use map that has been approved by a prior board, what would that look like compared to the acre? It's urban 2. So based on the future land use, he would have the approval to build 10 homes per acre, and now he's asking for 8 homes per acre. And also, future land use would allow a commercial building there as well. And so, I'm going to reserve my decision on that, but I think that, I've criticized commissioners in the past because they let their feelings dictate which way they made their decisions. I think we're charged with enforcing the rules and policies that are in place, and if we don't like that, we have the ability, subject to public hearing, to change those. But I think we've got to be very careful to selectively say, you're okay, but you're not okay. There's a single-wide mobile home on there now, and, I'm guessing that if he was asking to rezone it to allow a single-wide there, we'd probably get a lot of resistance from that as well. But that's not the case, and so we've got a septic tank there now, we've got a well there now, and that will be taken on the public water and public sewer. Very little taxes are being paid based on compared to what will come there, and so I'm trying to consider the whole aspect.
Any more? We're going to take a 5-minute break, so everybody that doesn't want to stick around can leave, and then we'll move on to your item. 5 minutes. No vote. No vote. Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you close that vote?
Did we already vote to hold the public hearing? All four? We vote to hold the public hearing, which we just
Well,
did.
here, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Didn't we make a motion to open the public hearing?
We never had a vote on it, though. All right? We need to vote on Richard's motion, which was to conduct the public hearing. He's already made the motion.
I've already made the motion.
I made the second.
Okay, all four?
Aye.
Motion passes 5. That's all we need to do, right, Heather? Yep. 5 minutes. Sorry about that delay. Bean? Yeah. We're going to start off with citizens to be heard, since I skipped that earlier. So we'll start out with Al. Al, how do you say it? Tchaikovsky? Tchaikovsky. Is Al here?
Maybe in the bathroom.
Okay. You're up. I guess so. We got a bunch of citizens to be here, 2 minutes, okay?
2 minutes, I'll rush.
Anytime we have over 10, I'm gonna cut it from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, just to
Tell me when to go.
go.
Okay. Al Shalkowski, 351 Canal Street. Your beaches are polluted. I don't know if everybody knows that or not, but Shell Point Beach has been closed now for the last 3 weeks. My grandkids came down, wanted to visit me. Beaches are polluted. You can't let them go swimming. And that's why we live here, because this is supposed to be the natural place to be. This is supposed to be Wakulla County. Come on down, sportsman's paradise. We're all about the outdoors here, and we can't let our kids go swimming. They've closed all the sinkholes, you're fencing off the bridges, now Shell Point Beach is polluted, and I'd like to know what you intend to do about it. I'd like to know how building in the wetlands is going to help that situation. Ralph, you said online that you could explain it to my grandkids. Well, they couldn't be here tonight, so tell us, how is building in the wetlands?
Don't respond to that, we're not doing this.
Well, you can if you want to, all you have to do is ask you. No, if you ask you, I've seen it happen before. If you ask you, then you say, yeah, go ahead.
Stick around after the meeting, we'll talk as long as you
Well, I
want to
think
talk.
I'd like to see, everybody'd like to know.
No, you can't do it then, it's up to me.
Okay, so that's where you're all at then. Thank you.
Thank you. John Trice? I know John.
Hey, John, went that away. He'll be back shortly.
All right, I'll put John, I'll set him aside for now.
John's here.
Is he here? All right.
You're gonna shoot it. You're gonna shoot it.
Come on, John.
John Trice, 35 J&K Lane. I stayed at home as long as I could and let y'all have peace down here. But y'all just keep on and on about the airport. So I had to come talk about it. That airport hadn't cost y'all nothing. Fenton Jones gave you the land. I see it's on the agenda to talk about tonight on the man's thing, but just moved down here. That airport was here way before he blew into Wakulla County. It's been here longer than a lot of it's been born. And y'all want to fool with the airport. Just leave the damn thing alone. It ain't cost y'all a lot of money all these years. So why do you want to fool with it? Them little airplanes been flying in and out down there for years. Hadn't messed with none of y'all. Hadn't cost y'all nothing. And y'all want to fool with it. If you don't want to spend no money on it, just leave it alone. Let the people fly in and out down there and jump in and out of the planes down there and parachute. Don't have the county do nothing to it. Maybe carry a little insurance if it's gonna cost y'all anything, if anybody gets hurt. And that's all you gotta do. Y'all supposedly could got a bunch of free tax, well, it ain't free, but it's tax dollars that you didn't have to pay back. And that's all you had to do with it. So you haven't got to spend a lot of money on that new airport. It's been there for years and years and years, and all you had to do was mow it once in a while. Or Carbine or somebody mowed it for years. It didn't cost the county no money. So why do y'all keep harping and harping on the airport? He's got a big thing in Gwen Haskins' book where Gwen talks about the county and the county commissioner so much. Wanted to throw something at Randy Merritt, or put in that book he did, about the last meeting. Gwen's always spouting off about his opinion. Don't nobody give a damn about Gwen's opinion. He was just like an a-hole. Everybody's got one, but it don't count. So,
all right, John, don't cuss too much.
I ain't cussing. I just said that. His opinion. He won't let nobody else put one in that book if you pay him. So, y'all just leave the airport alone.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you letting me talk.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lambu?
Vic Lambu. I'm chair of the Wakulla Wetlands Allowance, and our purpose is to save the wetlands that are so vital to our economy here. Wakulla's golden goose is our wetlands. They furnish food and nursery to our sport and commercial fish. They furnish the habitat that supports our birds, animals, and scenery that brings the ecotourism people here. They produce the seafood that brings the people across our borders to our restaurants to eat our seafood. It is a bedroom community for those that live here because of our natural environments in Wake and Leon County. It brings the people here because of the scenery. It's often said that when we try to protect our vital wetlands, that you got yours and now you don't want me to get mine. I don't believe there's any more land in the homes to be able to be homesteaded in the U.S. anymore. So should we open all federal and state parks, refuges, national forests, etc. to homesteading because some got theirs and I can't get mine now? I wouldn't mind getting 100 acres in one of our state forests. Increasing population and demands on our resources necessitates restrictions for the common good. It's often said that wetlands are taking away our freedom. Wetland regulations. Before the Model T Ford, how many roadways had traffic lights? The installation of a traffic light took away a little of my freedom. It don't allow me to move across the road anytime I want to. But it's a necessity for the common good of us all. Can we do without traffic lights now? I think now. Can we do without our wetland regulations? I think not.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lambu? Ms. Lambu was next. Oh, I couldn't hear because of the clapping.
That's what I'm here for. I haven't been here in a long time, so bear with me. I'm Lambu, married to Victor. My name is Lorraine. I thank you for praying, and thank you for allowing me to speak from my heart. Do we really know how important our wetlands are? A lot of us do and appreciate them, but tonight I would like to emphasize their importance. Wetlands are the nursery for baby fishes of all kinds. When the females ready to lay their eggs, they visit these waters. They lay them by the thousands, and they come by the thousands. Then they return to open waters after they have laid these eggs. Many wind up in frying pans or maybe live longer enough to lay more thousands of eggs. We don't know that fact. The eggs hatch that they laid are in the tall grasses where they hide for protection from predators. They eat what crustaceans they find, and they grow up fast and return to open waters when fully grown. This is a reproduction center. We have elected you fine gentlemen to protect our resources. It is the right thing to do. All of us are responsible to do our part. I ask you tonight that you do what is right. Protect our wetlands. I say amen. Mankind is smart enough to go to the moon. Then mankind can save the planet too. All of us. Amen. God bless us all, everyone.
Thank you. Sue Damon?
Oh, you called another name.
Okay, Sue Damon doesn't want to talk? People are clapping, sorry.
I'm in the back down here. Good evening, Commissioners. Well, once again, we should not even be here tonight talking about the wetlands again and again and again. When you think about it, is there anything that is more critical to life than fresh, clean water? This board has elected to serve the people, not their friends. People deserve a voice in government, and they deserve a vote. This board should vote to put the Wetlands Comp Plan on the ballot in November. Otherwise, you're silencing the people who voted for you. This issue impacts too many people to let the ones who profit from it make the decision. You were elected to represent the people. The people deserve to choose their own future. Let's see how many people want to drain and pave and fill in wetlands. The people should have this vote. If you all do not vote to put it on the ballot, then there's going to be a number of us that have to go get 5,600 signatures. And what will we be saying about you commissioners as we visit every household? As the lady said earlier, you are mud.
Marie Coward, thank you. Please, guys, come on, please. Marie Coward?
I'm Marie Coward. I live at 2501 Surf Road, and I'm a taxpayer and voter. And I want to thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. My overarching concern about the Wakulla Airport is that my tax dollars, whether they're county dollars, state dollars, or federal dollars, should not be spent on an issue that really only serves a few people. And even if the county were to accept the state DOT funds in order to improve the safety and the capacity of the airstrip, the county is going to incur ongoing recurring costs over and over and over again. The airstrip is in a flood zone. There are wetlands on the property. It's an unsafe area for pilots and passengers. The estimated usage that's been given to you and to the people working on the master plan are exaggerated. We who live there in no way see or hear that kind of traffic. So I support doing nothing, deeding the airstrip to the Turpine residents, relocation, if the county needs a county airport, should be what the county does. I also support the preservation of the 300-foot buffer to protect the properties that are on the coast, on Surf Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Charles Hickman?
Thank you, Commissioners. It's been a while since I've appeared before you. I live at 528 Hickorywood Drive, and I come before you this evening to remind you, as one commissioner already has, is that you're charged with enforcement of existing policies and procedures. And I'm here to tell you that your selection process is extremely flawed for the TDC director position. Very flawed. It was mentioned also tonight by one of the commissioners that this is not going to be an employee. If it's not going to be an employee, then this position should be following the purchasing policy and request for proposal or request for an RFQ. It should not follow any of the policies affecting or the application process of becoming an employee of this county. Now, when you start looking at it, you can still be an employee of this county and still be under contract, as Mr. Edwards is and as Ben Pingree was in the past. That is a form of contract employee. But what you're suggesting also is that you don't wish to deal with firms. I remind you that whenever you become an independent contractor, at that point in time, you are an independent company. And therefore, that doesn't hold water. You need to go back, take a hard look at your process. You need to advertise it as it has been done in the past, and put it out for a request for quote. It'd be interesting to me to see just what kind of quotes you would get. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Parham?
My name is Jim Parham. I live at 2519 Surf Road, and I'm speaking to the airport issue that Commissioner Moore will bring up later, and that I, John Andrew Smith, and Stan Brown serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee to the airport, and we are going to reserve any comment because we are working within the structure. And the only thing that I want to share with you, particularly Commissioner Merritt, is that at the airport workshop I think it was you that stated that you wanted fees collected for use of the airport and you wanted a count of craft. That has not been done. I have turned in 2 public records requests. Ms. Taff and Mr. James can speak to that, and another neighbor has turned in another. There are no fees being collected, nor is there a count being made of use of the airport.
Thank you. David Damon?
Thank you, Commissioners. David Damon, speaking on the wetlands. I want to talk about a campaign of misinformation. Whether it's intentionally or because they just didn't take the time to do the research, it seems that 4 of our Commissioners, Merritt, Moore, Harden, and Thomas, have engaged in an ongoing campaign of misinformation about the wetlands ordinance. One Commissioner wrote, Wakulla County has lost every legal challenge to our wetlands ordinance to the extent of over $600,000 in paid settlements. Well, the reason $600,000 was paid was due to administrative technicalities, not anything having to do with the wetlands ordinance itself. Yet that's not what we have been led to believe. Another statement, as a result of this ordinance, citizens who own property along a body of water or isolated wetland have been denied the use of their property. Again, untrue or misleading. In almost every case, when an individual has requested a variance has been granted. They are seldom denied the use of their property. It was also written that the wetlands ordinance was written by a very small group of citizens within a local environmental activist organization and was not written according to environmental science. Again, completely untrue and misleading. This is how you describe several of the leading experts in wetlands in Florida, an engineer, an attorney specializing in wetlands, and an author of the book the DEP uses on wetlands. All volunteered a year of their time to write the wetlands ordinance. I can't believe that we would describe these volunteers and these people in such a manner. Some of you have gone to great lengths to suggest that this is about educating the public and have you believe that the state and feds have our wetlands protected, that our wetlands ordinance in Wakulla County is redundant. Again, more false information. Redundant? In Wakulla County, wetland buffers will go from 75 feet to 25 feet. And 0 buffers under the state and federal regulations, right up to the wetlands. Please, let's stick to the facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy DeHall? Sorry about that.
First of all, I'm Kathy DeHaan. I'd like to thank you for the extra seating. But I would like to support the referendum to put the wetlands thing on the ballot for the citizens to vote on. And I would appreciate if each and every one of you would vote to do that rather than cause us as citizens to have to go out and beat the bushes to get people to sign up. Thank you.
Thank you. Eugene Watkins?
Hello, Eugene Watkins. I live in Crawfordville, Florida, and I'd like to keep the wetlands ordinance the way it is. A couple months ago, I was reading a magazine and happened to see an article that pertains to just what we're talking about, and it's in the Smithsonian. And then I'd like just to read a couple sentences I read in here. Anyway, the article is about the Indian River Lagoon on the east coast of Florida is basically dying or almost dead. And one sentence here says, the shellfish industry is in shambles. You know, we worry about the shellfish industry here in Wakulla County. 2 more sentences I'd like to read is, so much of the surrounding wetlands have been paved and drained that the lagoon is fast becoming a sink for the land's poison. It's hard to imagine a bright future for this place. Is that where we're headed here in Wakulla County? Are we going to lose our bright future also? Again, I've heard many of the commissioners talk about state regulations. Where this is happening, state regulations are in place and they did not work. Another thing that's happening in Wakulla County, I brought a news article. Somebody mentioned earlier that we cannot swim at Shell Point. And I know several of the commissioners have said that there's plenty of government land to protect our waters. Well, apparently it's not working, or we wouldn't have this kind of headline in Wakulla County. So I, too, wish you guys would let us vote or you would vote to let everybody vote later on to keep the wetlands if they want to. Thank you.
You, Taylor?
Is it hot in here, or am I crazy?
No, it's not too bad.
My name is Hugh Taylor. I live at 1357 Dr. Martin Luther King Road. I'm not a member of the referendum committee, but I support its goals. This may be slow going. I would like to speak about procedure and policy. A lot of citizens, even here tonight, don't know that if a commissioner's item fails for a lack of a second, the citizens do not get an opportunity to speak. This just happened earlier this evening. And there's a procedure called a second for discussion, which to my mind is a Bush League way to second. You know that? Some citizens do not. So have the courage to have a real second and a real vote. It's my feeling that citizens need the opportunity to vote county-wide. But I make you this promise. If any commissioner refuses to second Commissioner Kessler's discussion item, there will be incensed citizens that will not forget your actions either in 2014 or 2016. So I strongly suggest that we have a real second. Let citizens speak to the issue, play fair and square, without the push-pull questions I saw, and allow us to vote on our, not your, common resource. It's not your government, it's ours. Likewise with our wetlands. So I strongly suggest that you let all citizens vote on this common resource. A real vote means that citizens will be able to tell your feelings about citizen participation, just their thinking about re-election and the 1 cent sales tax coming next year. Failing an up or down vote, we can only assume that your political views and your views on citizen, your political views and your views on citizens involved in government. It's my view that the less a third world country this is, or that this reflects, the better off we will all be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jackie Turner?
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. My name's Jackie Turner, and I live at 198 Mount Zion. And I'm here tonight to ask you to support placing a referendum on the 2014 ballot to let citizens decide the level of protection for our county's wetlands. This is an important decision, and I really urge you to allow citizens to have their voices heard, to give us the opportunity to weigh in on this important decision. And if you believe, and I have no doubt to question you, but if you believe your position on wetlands protection represents the citizens of Wakulla County, then please allow this referendum to go forward, and it will be an opportunity to confirm your position and your belief. Again, please allow us the opportunity to vote on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Betty Lee?
Speaking on behalf of the airport, anything I say would be redundant because we've gone over it and y'all have heard it, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But I just want to say that the gentleman, the second one that came in after the break, he was right. It was deeded to the people, for recreation, and nothing has been, it's not a big airport. We hear the planes every now and then, so we really don't need a bigger airport, just for a few that's in that area. If they want to use the money, maybe the money from the Department of Transportation could be reappropriated to something that the members of the county could all use. Thank you.
Thank you. Molly Williams?
I'm Molly Williams. My family has a place on Surf Road on the Ocotney Bay. They've had it since 1945, and I was reiterating the airport again. I'm just concerned about plans for expansion and paving and a larger airport in that area. All that runoff, flood zone, there's just some issues that we're concerned with our beautiful bay, and that's the whole reason people come down to the Ocotney Bay, is the beauty of it. There's not really that many airplanes that fly in there. I think there's a better place for a county airport where you'll have more room for growth. I just think we just have a few little airplanes buzzing in and out, and we don't have a problem with it as it is, but I'm concerned with paving it, making it larger, all that runoff into our bay. It will jeopardize something that's too beautiful to ruin. Thank you.
Thank you. Burton Williams?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the airport as well. The gentleman that came in earlier said, why are we talking about this still? And I agree with him. The airport's sitting in a floodplain. It's surrounded by wetlands, surf road, tar pine, and a highway on the other side. There's nowhere for it to expand. So if you ever wanted a bigger airport, you can't have it there. So it just serves no purpose as far as that goes. So why are we going to invest more money into that? It looks to me like it'd be better to invest monies, for instance, in the pedestrian trails that have been, people have been talking about putting in that area, where they would actually bring tourists from Tallahassee, South Georgia, to spend the day biking and spending money in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. John? Corey? Panhandle Citizens Coalition. There we go.
Hello, Commissioners and member of the public. I'm John Hedrick, Chair of the Panhandle Citizens Coalition. We favor the original adoption of the Wetlands Ordinance. Conversely, we oppose the appeal of the Wetlands Ordinance. We would favor it being put on the ballot and let the citizens vote on such Wetlands Ordinance. And we stand ready to assist in whatever way possible, depending upon wherever this issue goes from tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last but not least, Ms. Arts.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. I have 5 comments and 4 recommendations related to recent wetlands decisions and letters that I've read in Wakulla News. First, if good local governance means turning over county regulation and enforcement to state government, why do we need county commissioners? 2, your job is to look after county interests, to balance selfish individual interests with the common good. Instead, this commission acts as if short-term property rights of self-centered individuals and developers are more important than the broader long-term interests of all. 3, I am concerned that people and leaders in our county advocate for a flawed approach to economic development. Our county needs more tourists and more commercial development in our city and town centers. Residential development does not bring in enough tax revenue to pay for all the services and facilities that new residents need, especially when residential development sprawls or is spread out along our rivers and such as Commissioner Harden desires. Are you trying to lower our property taxes or put us on the road to county bankruptcy? 4, if you allow people to build closer to rivers and cut down the buffer vegetation that they think is spoiling their view, you are spoiling our rivers for ecotourism. Who wants to kayak past trailers and houses? Tourists want to see water, trees, and wildlife. Franklin County, 5. Franklin County has a lot of public land and a lot of development. They also greatly value their seafood industry. Has your research uncovered the size of their wetland buffer? It's 150 feet. Yet we're trying to lower ours from 75. May I please give my 4 recommendations quickly?
Please, briefly, yes, please.
Okay, first, leave the wetlands buffer in our comp plan alone. Forget about getting rid of our well-balanced wetlands ordinance. 2, if you won't do that, at least preserve these within the Wakulla Springs Protection Zone. 3, to get yourselves out of the frying pan and preserve any hope for re-election, let the citizens decide this issue. Approved Commissioner Kessler's referendum proposal. 4, if you decline a referendum, I ask that each of you sit down individually and talk with Catherine Gilbert, a wetlands expert formerly with DEP and my personal appointee to the Wetlands Ordinance Committee. She knows more about federal, state, and county wetlands regulations than any of us could hope to learn. And she may be able to explain to you why your current path is misguided. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, David, back to the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioners. This agenda item requests approval of the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service Watershed Protection Recovery Program reimbursement, matching grant project agreement for Bostic Pelt, Buckhorn Creek, and Walker Creek. Approve the Pebble Ridge Task Order for the provision of professional engineering services, and authorize the chairman to execute the project agreement. This is the NRS CS project that was approved at our last meeting, and all this does is approve Pebble Ridge to move forward with the task order to execute. Can I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the project agreement for Bostic Pelt, Buckhorn Creek, Surf Road, and Walker Creek.
Second the motion.
Discussion? All for the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item.
Thank you. This agenda item requests board approval of state and federal legislative priorities for the 2014 legislative cycle. As I've mentioned to each one of you, we want to go ahead and get ahead of the curve this year and get into committee prior to the legislative session, so therefore we want to go ahead and get a list of priorities approved. We'll be hitting the trail here in August, so we can try to get our voice here in Wakulla County heard. I'll run down through them real quick if you'd like.
I make a motion we approve the 2014 legislative priorities.
Second.
If you want to just
I can briefly hit them. Our priorities would be, priorities are OBBT funding.
Just the bike trail.
The bike trail, US 319 corridor improvements and lane expansion, FDOT SIS designation for US 319 and 98.
Which is strategic intermodal system, which means we'll get more likely to get grant money. I'm just translating.
That's right. Sewer and wastewater needs countywide. This includes the Wakulla County Water Springs Protection Program, wastewater treatment plant expansion, and sewer and stormwater in Panacea and Sopchoppy and Wakulla Gardens. Replace and repair bridges. We have numerous bridges that need work. Sopchoppy River, Tide Creek, and Wakulla River Bridge. Sidewalks, Oaklotney Street, Howe Drive, Panacea, Crawfordville, on 319 in Crawfordville. Crawfordville Fire and EMS Station, we're going to request state funding for that. Dredging at Shell Point, Masha Sands, and Spring Creek for ease of safety for boaters. Paddling trail, canoe kayak launches, and signage to encourage enhancement of tourist and economic activity in the county. And then the community center demonstration kitchen. And that's our legislative priorities for the year.
We're probably not going to get into this money, but it's more to ask. Any more discussion on the item? All for the motion? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item.
This agenda item requests the board to execute the state housing initiatives partnership with the SHIP program's annual report and regulatory reform implementation certifications for closeout of physical 2008, 2009, 2009, and 10. We went through an extensive process, we cleaned up. This was a big cleanup from when we had our own housing in-house program. It cost the county, cost us some money, but we have it cleaned up now, and we're ready to move forward and put this annual report to bed. Can I have a motion, please?
Move to approve the execution of the annual report and regulatory.
Second that.
Any discussion? Call for the motion? Aye. Motion passes. All right, Howard?
Mr. Chairman, real briefly, before we leave general business, I just wanted to make sure the record was clear on item 13. I think the motion kind of got cut off. Assuming the motion was to approve the project agreement and the 3 work orders, option 1.
Yes, option 1.
Is that everyone's understanding?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Howard, go ahead.
So the first item I have on, for my commission items, is an agenda item requesting the board to reduce the present 7% public service utility tax from 7 to 6%, a 1% reduction. The reduction of this public service tax will affect, and this is the tax on electricity, utilities, water, gas, propane. The reduction of the PST from 6% to 7%, the 1% reduction, would affect the budgeted revenue stream by an anticipated $147,000. But the board can make budgetary moves that can reduce this to 0. And that is the agenda item.
Is that your motion?
To vote to reduce the public service utility tax to 6% from 7.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Want to let the citizens go ahead and speak?
Sure.
Ralph?
Absolutely.
Larry? Progress? Yes, sir.
Larry Roberts, Chapchani. Of course, if it's a tax, I'm opposed to it. If it's a motion to lower the tax, I'm for it. That goes really without saying. But this particular tax, it's just a few dollars for each of us for our homes. But you go and talk to the small business and see how much that person, if it's a convenience store or whatever that is, requires refrigeration, that they pay a lot of money above and beyond what they would normally do. So, of course, they probably pass it on to us, but there's more impact there than it would appear, and I suggest you think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Al?
Hi, Al Sharkovsky, 351 Canal Street. You all ran on a platform of lowering our taxes, and now you get a chance to vote on it. I don't see where there should be a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Bremner?
Thank you, Commissioners. Ed Bremner, 49-9 Gables. I've heard you say many times, I've heard more than one of you say many times that there is no taxes on electricity until you reach 500 kilowatt hours. That's not true. I've got a couple of I've got a meter out there on a piece of property that runs a well for some livestock. My bill every month is well under 500 kilowatt hours a month. So theoretically, I should pay $0 in PST taxes. However, every month my bill includes PST taxes. It's not a lot of money, as someone said here, but it's not true that there's no taxes on your electricity until you reach 500 kilowatt hours. In fact, every person is charged a tax on their facility charge. And there's a minimum bill charge that Talquin charges, and you pay a tax on that. And then we pay a tax on the tax that Florida charges us a tax, and we have to pay a tax on that tax, which to me that could become a real circular what I like to call a self-licking ice cream cone pretty quickly when you start paying taxes on taxes. I just wanted to let you guys know that it's not true that there's no taxes charged on your electricity bill until you reach 500 kilowatt hours. I fully support Commissioner Kessler's reducing this tax to 6%. I truly think this tax should be reduced to 0%. Thank you much.
Eugene Watkins?
Eugene Watkins of Crawfordville again. I oppose this tax on utilities. I think it's an unfair tax. I'm not a person that usually opposes taxes. I think we got to pay for services we get. But this tax, people can't control themselves how much they're getting taxed. The people that can't afford a nice brand new house that's well insulated, their taxes are going to be higher, because they use more electricity. A lot of people trying to feed their children at home, they got to use electricity to cook. They're going to get taxed. If this was a land tax, you can decide how much value in your property you're going to pay for, and then therefore higher value property is, the more tax you're going to pay. But with this utility tax, people can't make choices. They're taxed. They got to feed their kids. They got to use electricity. So I oppose this tax, and I support Howard Kessler.
I'm not going to sit here and say I like taxes, but we got a plan to rebuild our reserves. When I got here and Jerry got here, we didn't do anything miraculous. The board got us out of a financial hole, and this is one step towards getting back in it, I think. I've said it 100 times, we need to spend the tax dollars as wisely as possible. They're not ours, they're citizens' tax dollars. We need to spend them as wisely as possible. We need to continue to build our reserves. We get a crisis like this thing went through on BoCC, Cut and all that road. If we had a healthy reserve, we could have paid for that out of our reserve instead of taking it out of road paving money that we were going to use on Wakulla Gardens. That's just my opinion, but I'm not going to sit here and say I support taxes, but I don't support Howard's proposal.
I'm going to also say, I don't support taxes either, but at the same time, whenever you take a $147,000 cut, you've got to make it up. You've got to make it up somewhere, and we're in the process right now of going through the budget. We've already made several cuts in order to bring the budget in right now, and as far around the world, the commission has no plan to raise either the ad valorem tax or raise this tax, but if we take $147,000 out, then we're going to have to make it up somewhere, and I haven't heard any suggestions of what it is we're going to do and cut in order to make it. Well, if we didn't have this, then everything's solely on the backs of who owns property. Okay?
Thursday of this week, we have a budget meeting, and that's the appropriate time to discuss this as we're looking at the overall budget, how it's going to affect the budget, and if a cut is made, where that money's going to come from. And so for that reason, I will be voting against this and ask that we bring it back up on Thursday.
Well, so everyone's had their say, or Commissioner Moore?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So it was said that you have not heard any suggestions of where this would come from, and that is not true. Okay, I did not put it tonight. But prior to tonight, I pleaded with this board to not just allow $100,000 that legally may rightfully due for this board, to just ignore it. If it was $100,000 of your money, I don't think you would be so quick to say that was a different administration. We can ignore that. There's $100,000 there. There are other areas that I mentioned prior, that go well beyond this $147,000. If the board has the will to go after the money that's owed to them and to tighten its belt on some of the expenditures that it is donating our taxpayers' dollars to, then we can easily do this and have no impact on the present budget.
Topics for the budget period, and I calculated for, and I don't know what Ed's, we need to look into that if he's paying power on tax on that 500 kilowatt hour, it shouldn't be. But anyway, if your power bill is $150 a month, your proposed tax cut equals $1 a month. $1 a month in order to cut $147,000 out of the budget for the typical Wakulla County family. So, I mean, again, good topics for the budget hearing, but let's move on. Any more discussion?
I just want to say again that I don't want things to be solely squared on the back of property owners. This is fair, it spreads it out.
100% agree with that. All for the motion?
Aye. Oh, excuse me. No.
All for the motion?
Aye.
So you're voting for Howard?
No, I'm voting against it.
All for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails 4-1. Okay, Howard.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This agenda item requests the board to approve to place on the 2004 ballot a referendum that would allow the 2014? Did I say 12? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
2014 ballot, a referendum that would allow citizens to vote whether or not to include our present county wetland ordinance in our county charter. Our wetlands are vital to Wakulla County's economy. The wetlands support our sport and commercial fishing industries, our tourist industry, our restaurants. They help prevent flooding. It makes it desirable for us to be a bedroom community for Tallahassee. And I urge you to lend your support to this and place it on the ballot so that the citizens can decide. I trust their wisdom, and I hope you do also. It's said that men and nations behave wisely once they have exhausted all other alternatives. I don't want to get to the point of having exhausted all other alternatives. So I ask you to consider seriously lending your support to approve this and not have the citizens go out and raise petitions.
Okay, that's your motion?
Yes, it basically allows the citizens to vote putting the wetlands ordinance in our county charter.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, we got 23 citizens to be heard. Are you supporting this? Think you might support it, or?
No, I plan on opposing it, and, the reason for that is he's proposing to modify the charter. Our charter is a document that outlines the structure of the government, the elected officials, the constitutional officers. I realize that there's not a restriction for doing what you're proposing. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but currently, we don't have anything in the charter that addresses land use and what citizens can and can't do. So it's perfectly allowable, I understand that, but I think it convolutes our charter, and it's very much like making revisions to our Constitution, state or federal. Several years ago, there was an amendment to put a restriction regarding pregnant pigs in the state constitution, and that could have been handled with a legislative, ordinance. This is just not the appropriate place for it.
Well, I'm sorry, if your intention is to vote against the item, do you mind discussing these points under discussion items? If you're not going to vote for it anyway?
I would like to respond to part of that.
Can we, if you're not going to vote for it, can you withdraw your second, and we'll talk about this under discussion?
Well, I'm perfectly fine with letting the citizens speak.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started on that, and we got a lot of citizens. James Hennessy? 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Commissioners, for giving a few minutes to talk on this, and I think it is a vitally important issue, and I would wish you would reconsider this idea about making it a referendum. I don't know why you wouldn't want to know what the citizens truly feel about this issue. I also want to thank Commissioner Thomas for putting his letter in the news there and talking about the research that he did about his position. And I think I'm thankful for that because it stimulated me to do a little bit of research on my own. And I guess I would encourage all the citizens to do that, and I would think a referendum would give everybody a chance to do that. One thing in particular I found was an article in the Tampa Bay Times that talked about the firing of 4 DEP attorneys, and this goes to Mr. Thomas's and the other commissioners' points that the state can do as we're only duplicating with the wetlands ordinance what happens in the state. And in fact, as it turns out, the amount of enforcement that the DEP has declined in the last 3 years, since 2010, and this particular article talked about the conflicts that the actual attorneys had with the newer DEP administrators who did not want to enforce wetlands ordinances around the state. And just as a few statistics here, in 2010, the DEP handled 2,289 enforcement cases. In 2010, that number, that was in 2010, that number dropped to 799 in 2012, and at the end of this May, 2013, only 145 cases were filed this year, which projects to 348 for the entire year. So that means in 3 years' time, the DEP is prosecuting 15% of what it was prosecuting just 3 years ago. So I think this indicates, I have one quote to read here, one sentence. One of the attorneys who was fired on this, who indicated that the deputy commissioner did not want to do enforcement, said, quotes, "Before, when people failed to get permits for filling wetlands and other activities, the agency went after them. Now the approach is to grant them an after-the-fact permit and let it slide." So I think that's hardly reassuring.
Thank you. Larry Roberts? I think that's been tried before, but I'll try it again. Bill Starling is next.
Larry Roberts, up, Chappie. That's a hard act to follow. I won't even try. And everything's been covered by people who have spoken sooner. On Sister Be Heard, the Damons, Ms. Arts, this lady right here, told it like it is. The only thing I have to say is to approve Dr. Kessler's motion is really the only honorable thing that you can do.
Thank you. Bill Starling, then Al, you're next.
How you doing? I'm opposed to placing the referendum on the ballot and opposed to incorporating the current wetlands ordinance into our charter. I support rescinding the ordinance because state and federal regulations provide adequate protection already. Thank you.
Thank you. Al? Sue Early is after that.
Al Schmalkowski, I'd just like to support Dr. Kessler in his efforts to get this in, before the voters. I think putting a second, giving Dr. Kessler a second with the stipulation that just so we can get up and talk is kind of a chicken way out. I think you should have manned up and done it. Either said you were against it or said you were for it. Thank you.
I clearly said I was against it. Thank you.
Sue Early, followed by Bob Danzig.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Sue Early. I live in Sockchoppy. I work in Tallahassee, so thank you so much for changing the starting time so I could come and speak. This is the first time I've ever come to speak. I believe the majority of the residents in Wakulla County have never been in here to speak. The common person doesn't come here to speak. They're taking care of their family, they're working, they're doing their chores. It doesn't matter whether I'm for or against the wetlands. I'm just one person. What matters is the majority. Do you know how the majority feels on an issue this important and this divisive that I'm reading over and again in the paper, I'm hearing from people? This is not a Fox Run issue. This is not an airport issue. I'm not diminishing the importance of those issues. This is a county-wide issue that is very, very important. I understand, and I truly believe that each of you commissioners are trying to do what's best for Wakulla County, but I'm not sure that you necessarily know what's best for the county. And the common person doesn't come here, but the common person does vote. So for that reason, for an issue this important, I do support a referendum for the wetlands, and I encourage you to please consider to do that for us. Thank you so much.
Bob Danzig, followed by Nancy Tucker.
Hey, my name is Bob Danzig. Well, I oppose this. I generally oppose the wetlands ordinance. I think Ralph probably said it best, that's just not the place for it. And if you want to have one and the public wants to have one, fine, but it shouldn't be in the charter. I would support getting rid of the charter, as a matter of fact. Now, what is the biggest misconception here? And all these people have gotten up and talking, there's been very few people that's going to agree with me. The biggest misconception is we're not talking about doing anything with the wetlands. We're talking about a buffer. So for all the people on TV, nobody's digging in the wetlands. Nobody's worried. Nobody's going to fill wetlands. Nobody's going to do anything with wetlands. This is about the buffer of good dirt, 75 foot of good dirt around the wetlands that you are able to use your property. This has nothing to do with destroying wetlands. So that is the biggest misconception. It's pretty close to a lie, is what they're bringing forward. So, with that said, thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Tucker, followed by Martha Lang.
Make it short and sweet. I really believe that citizens should be allowed to vote on this referendum. The wetlands are so vital to this county, and if you don't know anything about wetlands, you need to research it. It's a bit of a nursery for marine life, and a lot of the county's economy is based on fishing and outdoor sports. I'm all for the referendum.
Thank you. Martha Lang, followed by Paul, F-O-R-T-I-E-R, I think.
Hi, I'm Martha Lang. I live in Tallahassee. I'm a Leon County Soil and Water Conservation Supervisor, but I'm also a Deputy Vice President of the Association of Florida Conservation Districts. Wakulla County is in my jurisdiction now, and I'm here to urge you to keep the wetlands buffer in place. It is necessary for environmental stewardship. It sends a fantastic message that the wetlands are a priority, and we must allow the citizens to vote on this issue for the sake of democracy, for the sake of the citizens being able to become informed and to give their opinion about protecting the wetlands. As Commissioner Moore stated, we can have development, we can have smart development, and we can have development that's in accord with environmental stewardship. Protecting the wetlands is absolutely vital for public health, for water filtration, water quality, air quality, and the beautification of Wakulla County. I live in Tallahassee. I come to Wakulla County frequently because it's beautiful and wonderful, and I love being outside. Not allowing citizens to vote on this issue and not working to protect the wetlands is a violation of environmental ethics. It's a violation of human health. It's a violation of ecosystem health. I teach environmental ethics and political philosophy at FSU, and a common theme has been that we would not even have government if we didn't have land that is protected. We absolutely depend on our land. We depend on our wetlands for our air and water quality, which is what we all need to remain healthy citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul 48, followed by Mr. Trice.
Hi, Paul 48, Eddie Osprey. I was very disappointed to read in today's Tallahassee Democrat that this commission, except for Mr. Kessler, voted to repeal our wetlands ordinance. And we believe this is a very economically short-sighted and destructive move. And more importantly, it does not reflect the views of your constituents. And we support Mr. Kessler's recommendation for a vote and hope that you take that seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Don, Judy, you're next. Good idea.
This wetland ordinance should be supported. A lot of people hadn't lived in this county a long time against this wetland thing. EPA does not enforce wetland things and all this. EPA, I'll show you, I've oystered and fished in this county for many years. Now, to show you how great the EPA is and the federal government and all that is, you take Panacea, for instance. Panacea Bridge. Now, does that look like a purified system to y'all? The oysters is good below Panacea Bridge, but they're bad above Panacea Bridge. Now, you know that's not a purified system, but the state thinks it is. So how stupid do you have to be? That's no purifying system, but according to the state, it is. You can go above that bridge, you get a ticket. Stay below that bridge, you can catch all the oysters you want to. Been that way for years. And that's the state working for you. So that shows you how our state works. So you let them do our county water, we're gonna be in trouble. Same way with Tide Creek. Tide Creek messed up a bunch of stuff. We stayed up there in Tallahassee all day long trying to get that development over at Tide Creek fixed back up. I don't believe none of y'all was there. Not a soul. You might have been, I don't know, but if you did, you was the only one. But we stayed up there all day long trying to get that mess at Tide Creek straightened out where they messed up over there. And it proved that it was wrong. But EPA didn't say it was. They let it just go right on. And people will get away with whatever you can. You know it, you've done it, and every human being on earth has done it. They'll get away with whatever they can. So you know they're going to do it. And the state's not going to catch them. They work 8 to 5, and then they off. They're going to go home, and they don't give a flip what goes on after 5 o'clock. Mike Stewart went over and caught them running sewer into a drain field. But who called him? Mike. I have to give Mike credit for going over and checking it. So y'all need to get on this wetland thing and go for it.
Thank you.
Support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Judy, followed by Sue Damon.
I'm Judith Harris. I live in Sopchoppy. I was so proud when this county adopted a good wetlands ordinance. I can't tell you how good that felt. Hard work was done. It wasn't easy to make it happen, but it happened. If the charter isn't the place to protect our wetlands, where is it? If 4 out of 5 people on this board can say we don't need a wetlands protection, and you're elected for 4 years, what protections do we have for anything? So I do support putting it on as a referendum. There are a lot of people who own property in Wakulla County who aren't big developers, but we care about the wetlands. And to the point of Mr. Dancy's belief that what happens right up to the wetlands isn't a problem. Oh, come on. Why was the person up here talking about the water pollution at Shell Point? It does matter to have protection for the wetlands. Please, please, if it doesn't go in the charter, how can the citizens have any influence on what we came here for, what we love about this place? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Sue, followed by Mr. Lambu.
Well, it's hard to beat that, I have to say. I believe you 4 gentlemen know that what you're doing is wrong. I think you know it. You're going to do it anyway. I do want to thank Mr. Thomas, at least, for letting us speak. But, it's downright criminal, in my opinion. I started a Facebook page just 10 days ago. It was called Save Wakulla Wetlands. We had over 451 likes in just a matter of days, and our reach is almost 5,000. I'm very, very happy to see that. It's not only Wakulla County, it's Leon County, and it's the state. And all these people are watching you guys and watching what you're doing to our county. And none of us like it. It's really pathetic. As far as the charter goes, we can work that out. That's not a problem. You can check with Heather. And you can check with a few other attorneys. We've already checked. This can go in. We can vote yes for this today. It's not a problem. You can look into that.
How is that going into it?
Thank you, Howard.
All right, thank you, Howard. Mr. Lambu, followed by Tim Jordan.
Thank you. What you are proposing here with doing away with the wetlands protection, and it's not like Mr. Danzy said, it's not the 35 foot. You are proposing to do away with our wetlands protection completely. That is going to change our county fundamentally, completely, we are going to, if you allow this to go through, we are going to have a completely different county. It's not to be a county where people come to seafood and come to fish. If you believe in the intelligence and wisdom of our fellow citizens, and I do, and if you believe in democracy, you will submit this to them as a referendum for them to make this important decision. If you do that, it will save the county and it will save the citizens a lot of money and a lot of trouble, because the citizens want to have a referendum on this, and you can oblige them. Our wetlands are too vital to make such a decision in the state. The state does not have the manpower and the will to protect our wetlands. We need to furnish our own protection. As if you've been reading the news, and it's been all over the news in the papers, you should be aware that if you're an attorney working for the state with a wetlands case, and you win, you're going to be fired. That's what they have done. So how many attorneys are going to bring good wetlands cases to save our Wakulla wetlands? I think very few. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Jordan, followed by Sandy Tedder.
I feel we have a representative form of government. I feel you commissioners have enough communication skills to communicate with your constituency and reflect their views. And I think y'all have done that. And if every time we have a 4-to-1 vote, we're going to have to have a public referendum. I think we're not doing our job. So I think the wetlands ordinance is hard to defend in our county. I think the state is more prepared to do that. I think it's redundant and excessive.
Thank you. Sandy Tedder. Carol Odell will be next.
I'm Sandy Tedder, Sop Choppy. I think the local ordinance really is the only way to protect our wetlands in this county, and I would urge you to go that direction and not do away with the wetlands and comp plan changes that you're proposing to put into place. I think we've got to save the wetlands. I think they're so important to our generation and our children, everybody in the future. If we pollute them, they don't come back very easily. It takes a long, long time. I think the local way is the only way. Thanks.
Carol Odell and David Damon's next.
Carol Odell, Panacea, Florida. I'm in opposition to the wetlands ordinance and for the referendum to be put on the ballot and into the county charter. Thank you.
David Damon and then Byron Price.
Well, it seems like 9 out of 10 people are totally in favor of keeping the wetlands ordinance, but you guys don't seem to be listening to anybody except for a very, very small number for some reason, and I don't get it. We keep hearing about redundant, we keep hearing about truth about wetlands. Here's the deal. Wakulla County currently has a 75-foot buffer, and you can get a variance back down to 35 feet. If we do away with it, what we're working with is a 25-foot maximum. It can be reduced down to 0. And when it comes to isolated wetlands, it will be done on a case-by-case basis as to whether they will be adversely affected when the decision is made as to whether they will be protected or filled. So let's start dealing with the facts here. And I strongly urge you to put this on the referendum. Let the citizens decide and don't shove it down our throat what you're trying to do. We'll go door to door if that's what it takes, but you're going to make it the hard way right before election time, and there are going to be a lot of mad citizens out there, and it's just a shame that you people are not listening, except for Howard. Thank you.
Thanks again, Howard. Byron Price, followed by Hugh Taylor. Is Hugh here? There he is. Not you yet, not yet. Byron Price. Byron's gone. Byron's gone? Yeah. You? It is you. And then Ron Pisecki, you're next.
is too much meat, gentlemen. I'm hearing things. You need to workshop it. At the very least, you need to workshop this. I'm not a member of this committee, referendum committee, but I was, or am, maybe, one of the radicals who spent 35 years in the building business on that wetlands committee and couldn't swim at Shell Point. You know, I was up here before a few years ago talking about you guys as a board made me who I am. I'm no tree hugger. I'm a guy that enjoys nature and likes to swim and enjoy the water. The wetlands repeal is a tax, whether you know it or not, and I'll be happy, Mr. Thomas, to go over that with you in public at a workshop. If, by your reasoning, I want to speak here about lungs and learning. Asbestos and football 3 days. Half. By your reasoning, I had to call her today. Her grandpa was my coach. And an awful man. 3 days in the Cobb Bowl, it's 110 degrees, and that was 45 years ago. By your reasoning, you're going to allow smoking in junior highs, right? And asbestos insulation. You're not, because now we know. Diabetes and obesity. We didn't know, now we know. Rachel Carson and DBT. When I first moved to Shell Point 25 years ago, there weren't many parkings. There were many. Football 3 days. Remember, Mr. Moore, with the water? Can you get that one? We know now about hydration. How many young athletes were killed to water? Probably a few. We didn't know then what we know now. Seatbelts, helmets, now we know. School segregation, we didn't know. We didn't know the advantages of diversity and fairness. Are we going to do the same with our wetlands? I bought you all a printer on wetlands, and I was going to make copies. But you know, and we know you know. Dr. King said the arc of history tends towards justice. Part of that justice is health and safety and protection of common resources. No referendum, no 1 cent sales tax, and no re-election for any commissioner next year or 16.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ron, call by Eugene Watkins.
Ron Pisecki, 137 Royster. When we think of Congress, what do we think of? I've heard names like scumbags, scallywags, and no-goods. When you ask about but my congressman is different. Now, I've heard the same expressions given me about you guys, scallywags and no-goods. But my answer to him, yes, but there are scallywags and no-goods. Now, you're elected by the citizens. You've all stated many times how critical the ecology and water is to Wakulla County and how you want to protect it. But by your voting to repeal the ordinance, what you're doing is turning over all the decisions to a board of governors of the Northwest Water Management District, 9 in total, all political appointees by the governor, with only one of them representing our district. Now, who would you rather have protect your most vital resource? Our no-goods or them? I'll tell you, you guys look like good guys, and we would rather have you make the decision. Because if we don't like what you do, we can vote you out. But we can't vote for governor appointee. So please rethink that and keep it locally. And as that one woman talked about, you're looking for your legacy. Make this an important part of your legacy. Keep it as it is. I like Lynn's recommendations. Keep it like it is. Second preference from the Friends and Alliance, at least keep it within the protection zone. If not, take the advantage today. And for those of you running for re-election, you put this behind you because you say, hey, it's a citizen's vote. Let's let the citizens decide. I don't have an opinion until I hear what the citizens say. Thank you.
Thank you. Eugene Watkins, followed by Jackie Turner.
Eugene Watkins, by now you know I'm from Crawfordville. It's been said that the state can protect the wetlands. Look around. They are failing at the task. Look at our springs and estuaries that are dying. It's hard for me to believe, no matter which side of this issue you're on, if you travel Florida, I've mentioned before, I mentioned the Indian River Lagoon, I mentioned Tampa Bay used to have scalloping. And I have to know, no matter which side of this issue you're on, you guys have traveled this state and seen that this state is failing at protecting our estuaries and our bays and this kind of stuff. I know you guys have looked around and seen it. The state is failing at protecting us. So please don't fail us and let us have the vote.
Thank you. Jackie Turner, followed by Kathy DeHaan.
Thank you. As I mentioned before, my name is Jackie Turner, and I live at 198 Mount Zion. First, just want to thank Commissioner Thomas. Appreciate you seconding Commissioner Kessler's motion and to allow additional citizens to speak. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Just want to say again, I really encourage you, please support putting this before the citizens. Please allow us to vote on this important issue. I really, please do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kathy, followed by Susan Jones.
Hi, I'm Kathy DeHaan. I just want to say I'm for the vote. Please, please, please reconsider. If the charter is the issue, then work it out. We pay for you to work it out. Please, please give us the vote. Thank you.
Susan Jones, 29 Everly Road. I just wanted to tell you all, thank you so much for everything you do for our community. Sorry, I sound like a frog, I'm sick. I think the bigger issue here is maybe we need to have a vote to give you all a raise because of all everything I'm hearing, but I know we'd have to have a workshop. So, I'm opposed to placing a referendum on the ballot, and I'm opposed to incorporating our current wetlands ordinance into our county charter. I support rescinding our local wetlands ordinance because state and federal regulations provide adequate protection already.
Thank you.
Comments?
Your second, go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, I hear a lot of comments about the state is not competent or not willing to enforce the regulations, and I don't share that. You know, I think that's political. I think that's drama, and I wonder where the crowds are that are holding those agencies accountable. If there's a statute and regulations on the books and they're not enforcing, why don't we have crowds of people standing up? You know, like we do here, and making those changes. Well, I encourage you, if you think that they're not doing their job, I encourage you to continue pressing them to do that, and you take that to the top, and if that doesn't work, your recourse is to your local legislature, and see if you can make those changes. I hear that Wakulla County is more capable of doing that when we clearly know that we don't have the financial resources, we don't have the means, we don't have the staff, not taking anything away from our staff. They do an excellent job with what they've been tasked to do, but we don't have the resources for that. If you think the state doesn't, how can we at such a smaller level? And, you know, just to re-emphasize that, I don't know, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know a single example of where the state has passed something through, and then since 2010, our local ordinance has caught it. We've been a safety net. I just don't know that that has occurred. Maybe it has, and if it has, I certainly like to hear that. But I think that any time those things have come along, they've been caught and they've been dealt with at the state level. A perfect example is the very last meeting that we have. All 5 of us, all 5 commissioners voted to fill in the wetlands and allow the applicant to fill in the wetlands and allow the applicant to build in the wetlands. Isolated wetlands and non-isolated, all 5. Now, no one stood up and opposed that. All 5 commissioners allowed that to happen. The reason it was allowed to happen is because they had the proper permits through the state, and when they came here, the mitigation was in place. They demonstrated whether or not there was going to be an adverse impact to the wetlands, and they worked out the acceptable mitigation. Our wetlands also contains mitigation, and if there's an impact, then an applicant has the ability to mitigate. My point is that problem was solved at the state level. All we had to do was say yes or no, we agree, and all 5 of us voted for it, and no one stood up and opposed it, and so that system worked. The main thing that I'm seeing here is there are 2 conversations going on, and they're not connected. They're out here, and that's the problem that we're having here. The first conversation is there's a group of people that are self-appointed that I love the wetlands, and I'm here to protect the wetlands, and you don't. And that's one conversation. Well, I can't speak for these guys, but I would be willing to say that there's not a person up here that wants to harm wetlands. The second conversation, which is more where I am and where these paths need to cross, is do we have sufficient regulations in place at the state and at the federal level? And if we do, then we don't need redundant regulations. Now, there seems to be a disagreement in that. I've done a lot of research. This is a fraction. This is a fraction of the state regulations. I'd just like to read. What does it take to get a permit? Who has to get a permit? And I'm just going to hit a couple of these. To get a permit, you have to show that you will not cause adverse water quality impacts to receiving waters and adjacent lands, not cause adverse flooding to on-site or off-site property, not cause adverse impacts to existing surface water storage and conveyance capabilities, not adversely impact the value of functions provided to fish and wildlife. The list goes on, and I'll be glad to speak in depth.
I don't want to interrupt, I'm sorry. Let's stick to the Howard's motion, which was a referendum. We're voting on whether or not to put this on a referendum. We can have these discussions under discussion items if we want, but let's stick to Howard's motion, which was to have a referendum.
I think I've said enough to make my point, but certainly willing to go as deep as anyone needs to go. Certainly willing to have a conversation and bring DEP in and bring the Northwest Water Florida Management District. We've all run through this process, including myself, and it's taken me a lot of time to get there. But, if that's the proper thing to do, let's have that conversation and let's bring the experts in, because I am convinced what I'm hearing is we are voting to take away the protections of the wetlands. We are not voting to do that. We are voting to take away the Wakulla County Wetlands Ordinance. The protections will remain in place, and if they're not there, then we need to address those things, because it's clearly in the statute. It's clearly in all the rules.
I was going to talk about it a little bit under discussion items.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like, as I said before, to at least respond to a couple of things that were said. One, I do not believe that the referendum is a land use issue. And I think that was said. It is not a land use issue. Okay? This is not about duplication, because the state doesn't have our buffers in their regs. They don't protect 75 feet. So you start comparing apples to oranges. Is the 75 feet important, or 150 feet, or 35 feet? We're at 75 feet. That's going to be taken away. The local system works. It's worked. It wasn't broken. And variances were given. We also have to listen to what the statistics say.
you can fill out a form and say whatever you want to say on that form. And if the manpower, which is constantly being cut, is not there to do the enforcement, and they have a time frame to okay that permit, those permits will be okayed. The state is a permitting agency. They are not protecting our wetlands in this state, and that's evidenced by what you see throughout the entire state. Our county has been spared, but we're about to open the door to allow that to change. But I also want to say this, let the board decide what they want to do. If this board moves ahead and rescinds the county wetlands ordinance, and the citizens vote when they get to that referendum to place that county wetlands protections back in our county, then this board will be potentially setting up the county for significant lawsuits. The prudent thing to do at this juncture is for the board to place on hold the board vote removing the local wetland protections from our ordinances and comp plan until the election of 2014, and the ballot referendum is decided, or else we are exposing our county to harm.
Basically, in 2010, sometime 2009, we had a lawsuit that involved the wetlands. It was not particularly the wetlands, whatever, but it started out as a wetlands issue. The county settled at $600,000 because of that issue. If we go forward in the position that we are now, anyone who wants to build in anybody who wants to build inside that boundary, the setback boundary that we're talking about, and we deny them, they have every right to sue us, and they will win every time. They will win every time, because you cannot absolutely take someone's property and not pay them for it. It was just the Water Management District somewhere here in Florida just settled a suit from the same reason. If we go forward and we work and we use the setback as a restriction to building, and we don't approve every request to go into that setback, we have taken some private property from some individual. And we just lost $600,000 because of a wetlands issue. It started out that way, and I am absolutely not going to go forward with that. At the time that the wetlands ordinance that we have now went on the books, Mr. Kessler with Ms. Arts and Mr. Green, they had the vote, so they could put that item onto the agenda, they could pass that item. They did not bring that item to a referendum. They put that item onto the citizens of this county who elected me for whatever reason. Sometimes I wonder. But anyway, they put that onto the county, and they didn't require a referendum. If they didn't want a referendum then, we could have used a referendum at that time to see if the citizens wanted this. I'm not going to vote this time to see if the citizens don't want it. The citizens will tell us how they feel, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and you can go out and get your signatures or do whatever, and the citizens will tell you, and we will be right or wrong in this. But I'm not going to subject the citizens to this county to the lawsuits that they will absolutely lose with the restrictions on the boundaries of the wetlands. And we're not moving into the wetlands. This is sort of like Red Robin Hood and Crying Wolf. We're not moving. This is not about moving into the wetlands. We hear about wetlands, but this is not moving into the wetlands. We're talking about a boundary. You could say that boundary could be 35 feet, and if you had the right vote on this commission, you could move it to 200 feet, and you could move it over the house of the people who live in the area. So I'm just not going to support this. I'm not going to have the county subject to the lawsuits that can come down the road on this.
Richard?
I'm not going to support this either tonight. I believe we're a representative government. I believe each of the five of us was elected to make the hard decisions. We've had this issue we're dealing with tonight. There'll always be one controversial issue right after another that we will deal with. You know, right now we're dealing with wetlands. Just recently it was the YMCA. Just before that it was the taxes. There will always be a controversial issue that we will be voting on. I believe we were elected by the citizens to make that vote, so I'm not going to be voting on this, but I do want to say that I do believe this is a land use issue. There's the people who actually own the property that want to use their land. I believe they should be allowed to use their land, and I also believe, you know, whatever 200,000 acres of land in our county that belongs to the government forever in a conservation easement. You know, compare that to there's only I think 2 other counties, Franklin County, Liberty County, that has the amount of government-owned land that we have. And one of the most protected things in our county is the woodlands and wetlands. What isn't protected and near endangerment is people's property rights. And that's what I've been fighting for throughout this whole thing. I will continue to fight for people's property rights throughout it. And I put a lot of value on the person that actually owns the property. Okay, it was made tonight that frankly, it was a former commissioner, Lynn Arch, made the statement tonight that Franklin County wouldn't let anybody build within 150 feet. Well, if you next time you go to St. Yard Restaurant, look at the houses there at Summer Camp that's that's well within that. Okay, what she is referring to is that they have a rule that if you have a septic tank that's not if you have a septic tank in Franklin County that you want to locate and it's not a performance-based it's a performance-based septic tank, then it's I believe it's 150 feet. But if you have a septic tank in that county that isn't performance-based, it's all the way to nearly 300. But that's strictly dealing with the septic tank. That's not dealing with whether or not you can clear your property. The 35 feet, the last 35 feet buffer that we have in our county, you know, it makes it to where there's somewhere in the way it's written right now, even if you've got property that's on the water, according to our buffer, according to our ordinance, a 35-foot buffer, you're not even supposed to even be cutting your grass. So there's people here tonight who are speaking, you know, who are wanting this wetlands ordinance, but they maintain their grass all the way to the water line. Some of the most outspoken ones here tonight, I spent time looking at the property appraiser site, and it's clear on the property appraiser site, the property is maintained all the way to the water line. You know, so anyway, I believe this is a land use issue. I believe the people that own the property should have the final say in what gets done with their property, and I'll be fighting for property rights throughout this issue.
All right, I'm going to let Howard have the last word.
Appreciate it.
It's related to the referendum.
Without putting the county attorney on the spot, I just want to ask, do you have an opinion of whether this is a land use issue, the wetlands ordinance on the county charter? Is this a land use issue?
Well, I'm not really sure what you guys are referring to when you talk about land use issues. Is it a zoning issue that is not allowed?
Well, I'll respond to that. What I mean by land use is people's ability to use their land. That's what I'm referring to. People want to use their land, and they're not being allowed to use their land because other people are wanting to tell them what it is to do with their land. And I put a lot of emphasis on who owns the property.
Because I was referring to, I think, legal terms that Commissioner Thomas was referring to.
Richard's referring to what's the word I'm looking for here?
Property rights?
No, the most literal interpretation, interpretation. When he says land use, he means use your land. And when you say land use, you mean planning and zoning items.
Well, I think what Commissioner Thomas is referring to.
I use the word land use as one example, but definitely a literal interpretation as well. What I was referring to is our charter currently, the only thing that it really addresses that citizens can and can't do is it addresses this issue of being able to go out and gather signatures and put an item on the referendum, and that can be an ordinance. That can, you know, change an ordinance, which the charter is an ordinance, so I understand that they have the ability to do that. But our charter, 99% of everything in the charter dictates the structure of the government, how it works, how it operates. It's basically our constitution for this county. So what I was referring to is not just land use, but anything where we are being restrictive and telling citizens what they can and can't do, that is not the proper place. It is not our charter.
Okay, let's let.
Okay, so
Howard, get the word and let's vote.
that got you off the hook.
Well, I can answer. I mean, what the charter does not allow, to be done by citizen initiative is any ordinance on the zoning of land. This would not be a zoning ordinance.
Correct.
Or on salaries, for example.
Yeah, there
of
are other
public
things.
officials.
So this is an appropriate spot for it.
It's allowable.
It's allowable, sure. And when the citizens have no other choice, there's no other thing for them to do, then they can use that system, even though the bar has been set so high at 30%. Next highest county in the state of Florida chartered is 10%. The citizens have the right to go out and gather those petitions.
Correct.
Okay? The board can make that easier by voting to put it on the ballot for them, and they wouldn't have to go through that. But I just want to bring out one thing, maybe many things. It constantly is misinformation, and right now I'm speaking specifically to Commissioner Moore, that to ascribe knowingly, or maybe not knowingly, that we had a wetlands issue that was the cause of a $600,000 settlement, and I don't know a $600,000 settlement, but whatever the cost was to the county, what I was exposed to as far as what I know of is that they were administrative decisions that were made in this county without going into detail that caused that. Now, if you want to go down that road and open that can of worms, that's fine, but that's misinformation when you say that the wetlands ordinance cost us $600,000.
I have a request from Mr. Crum, who was involved in the lawsuit with Mr. Kessler, that Mr. Crum would release the county from any requirements of silence if Mr. Kessler would do the same, and he would discuss that with you in an open forum. The county, you and Mr. Kessler, Mr. Crum, signed a non-disclosure type of agreement that neither party would talk about the lawsuit. Mr. Crum would like to ask you to release him of that obligation so he can discuss what happened in that issue. Would you do that?
Just a shade off track here. Let's stay with the motion that's on the floor, which is whether or not to have a referendum, okay?
Misinformation.
Okay.
Chairman, for this to be, to approve Commissioner Kessler's item, this will have to be a majority plus one vote, 4-1 for approval, just to let you know, okay? Anything that we're going to do that affects the charter in that fashion.
Okay, can we vote?
I think so.
All for the motion?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails 4-1. David, you had an item you want to talk about?
Yes, so we have an operational update. First, I'd like to thank Katie Taft and Jessica Welch. They just updated our website, or we have a brand new website, I should say. And Jessica, would you like to give them an update on what the website does, please, real quick?
Let's let everybody
Yeah, let's let everybody go.
Let's just,
quick.
Anybody use the bathroom? Katie?
I do.
Go ahead, Howard. You okay, Katie?
I'm gonna run there when he gets back.
Huh?
May as well take a minute or two. I'm gonna run there whenever he gets back. Yeah.
All right, it's getting late. As part of the operational update, I'd like to, Jessica Welch is going to give a brief overview of our new website. This website really moves us into the 21st century. So much better than what we've had before, and it's also better for our residents and our visitors. We'll provide more information, more transparency, etc. So, and I'd like to thank Jessica Welch and Katie Taft. This was their project. They worked on this along with everything that you're seeing on Channel 16. These two produced this, and we're going to continue to get better. We're going to continue to have better transparency. It's your money, it's your government, and that's what we recognize. So, with that, Jessica?
This was done in-house.
This was all done in-house.
Without hiring a consultant.
That's right.
Good.
And the good thing about it is it works really good because I turned in a picture today and it's already on the screen. The rainbow.
All right, Jessica.
Okay, in addition to the fresh new look, the design, some of the improvements of the features are the navigational functions. We have a new events calendar now. I don't know if you can look on there. We have...
Afraid that it crashed right now. Go ahead.
It's not going to crash. We have an emergency alert notification that will be in the middle of the home page for any kind of road closures, hurricane events. We have a form builder to be able to build our own forms. I think one of the best features is probably the content management software, for which we now are able to add content, update the content within minutes, other than I think our usual time was 12 to 24 hours.
Where would you go to leave a nasty email for your commissioner?
Right now they go to us and we forward them to you.
So at Meet Your Commissioner, you can't send an email to them?
Yes.
I think there's an email email all commissioners maybe.
That's slow. Well, anyway, the good news here is there you go.
We encourage everyone to go and take a look at it, and there is a website feedback form on there for anyone to submit comments or recommendations on how we could improve it even more. I think this is a good tool. I think you'll be pretty impressed.
The good news is these two ladies, this is saving us over $20,000 over a 2-year period that we were spending. And we're doing it in-house now, and they've really taken the ball and they've run with it, and I'm very proud of them.
Good, very good job.
Also, today is Katie's birthday, so everybody needs to wish her a happy birthday. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. All I know is we had 40-year-old napkins at her cake. So.
It's a public record. It said it ends with a 0 and it ends with a 3.
I didn't say that. I just said it ends with 0.
So moving right along, I wanted to inform the board. One of the things we'll talk about is also inform the board Thursday and also the public. Thursday at 5 o'clock is our 3rd workshop on the budget. Please plan to attend. One of the things that we will be bringing up there is we found out this past week, we knew we had a problem, but it's gotten worse, is the sheriff's office, their entire facility, we're going to have to re-roof the facility and or spray a vinyl coat. Currently, we're working on, the sheriff's department is working with us, and we're trying to get quotes in on a vinyl sealant that we can put on the roof, but we're talking somewhere in the tune of $250,000. We're going to request that those funds, unless we can find them elsewhere, which we haven't been able to, we will have to pull those out of reserves and spend the reserves next year on that, therefore reserving no money for next year. But we'll be bringing that to you guys there. Spring Creek Road resurfacing, the parent low bidder is PV and Sons. That project will start here soon. That's a $1 million project, $1,034,000. That resurfacing will start, and that goes from Spring Creek all the way to 98. Sperry Construction is the parent low bidder for the Sheriff's Annex facility. That's a $469,000 contract. We're working with them right now on value engineering.
On that, I would, if possible, I would call Sperry, encourage all y'all to call them and strongly encourage them to try to use local suppliers, if possible.
Those still have to be awarded by you guys at the next meeting.
Right,
But, I mean, it
these
wouldn't
are
hurt.
coming up. That is something that we are working with Sperry. We're trying to talk to Sperry about now, is using local vendors, as that's something very important to us. The community center building, we're almost complete. We should be wrapping it up here in the next few days. YMCA is currently performing their study. I believe some of you or some people that we know have already been contacted. Also we have, we're down to the end of our budget year, and therefore we're cutting off expenses everywhere we can, but we do have an HVAC system at the existing annexes we're going to have to replace. Is $18,000 worth.
Trice Lane.
And yeah, Trice Lane. So therefore, we're going to try to squeeze that somewhere, but we're going to try not to get that out of reserves. But we got to see what we can do there.
Cleves?
No, that's across the street, that where the sheriff's office is at right now. The Tallahassee sewer, to give you an update there, I ran a 20-year pro forma, worked on it with the city of Tallahassee. Basically, their bottom line was they could accept our sewer at $6.30 per thousand, plus a initiation fee, or not initiation fee, an access fee, additional access fee, and basically my pro forma came back that we could do it at about $1.50, and I asked them how low did they think they could go, and they didn't think they could go quite that low. So anyway, that issue just financially will not work. One of the problems that we have is our debt that we've got on our existing plant with no expansion capabilities. That really prohibits us from anything like that. So, as well as, so we'll be pursuing the USDA grant, with which we have been, and we're going to hopefully hear something from that this month, which will be a boost, and it'll be a big deal. And it'll add $10 million to our budget, but it also gives us over 50% grant match. So therefore, it will actually make our sewer system solvent. It'll make our sewer system to where it actually will make money to where we can actually afford to start taking care of our lift stations the way we should. Currently, we have 73 lift stations and a repair budget of $100,000, and we need considerably more than that. Because we're running into operational issues now that we're having to replace pumps on an emergency basis. It's costing us twice to 3 times the amount of money. So therefore, we got to start budgeting for proper maintenance on our facilities. And this would allow us to do that. Also allow us to expand our treatment plant, which we're at capacity currently. Let's see, we are also, let's see. We're also going through the process of our building rate studies. We're looking at lowering our building rates to spur construction, as well as some other things, as well as spend down our existing reserve that we have in this account, in the building account. We'll be going out for have our rate study done on just specific items within our rates, so that we're not having the full-blown study done. This is the larger items, larger commercial items, as well as the residential single-family homes. The reason being is this is about a $3,500 to $3,000 study, but the reason we have to have that, it gives us something to back up from a legal standpoint if we're challenged on these rates. But what this will do is actually, what we're proposing will be a 15% reduction in our building rates.
This study, is it going to show, like, I know that the impact fee study showed this is the maximum justifiable impact fee that you could justify. You didn't have to set it that high.
That's right.
But is this study going to do the same thing? This is a maximum building permit?
That's right. This is the maximum here, and what we're asking for makes sense, and it's defensible.
Why are we having to do a new study? Because
this is actually going back to the old study, and that's the reason it's so cheap. We've actually got quotes up to $40,000, but we don't want to do that.
The old study, if I remember right, wasn't very good.
That's right, but this is actually going back and narrowing in on those particular ones that we have issues with, and we're focusing on them versus redoing the whole thing.
You know I hate studies.
I know, but this $3,500 is for protection. It's good insurance for us, and versus us going out on a limb. Therefore, that's the operational update.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ralph, you got anything to talk about?
I've got 3 different things I want to kind of just float an idea, see if there's interest in it.
Run up the flagpole.
If so, I'll bring it back, or we can direct staff, or whatever's the appropriate action. On the consent agenda tonight, we voted to accept one of the SHIP funding sources of $350,000, and a portion of that is for purchases, and it's currently earmarked to be $60,000, and our LHAP currently allows up to $15,000 per person, so that's going to serve 4 people out of that pot of money. I would would like to see us open that to be able to still go to 15,000 if that's needed, but maybe let's serve more citizens, and let's put a restriction in there that we need to be able to demonstrate that that's the only way they're going to get financed is by having that money. And, just some rough criteria, and we can certainly hash this out if there's interest. But if someone's going to qualify for a 100% financing loan, and if they're going to be under a 43% debt ratio, so they're going to be at an affordable range, and they can do that without the SHIP funds, then maybe we need, or maybe part of the SHIP funds, maybe 5,000 instead of 15,000. Then let's give them that to get them in that range, but let's use that money to serve more people than just four.
I agree with that too. And same thing, you heard me talking about the rent. The more people we can help with the same amount of money, and it's an entitlement program, so it's not our entitlement program. We're running it, but we need to at least try to help as many. Is what Ralph's talking about doable, legal? Then I'd go 100%.
So if sounds like there's enough support, and I'll bring it back as an item. The next thing I alluded to earlier regarding the land development code, I think we need to put a stipulation in there that fall zone is not going to fall on an occupied property for an antenna structure. And I understand that it's falling on their property, and so it's their problem, but it's not just their problem if there's citizens in there. And so to me, it'd be a minor change to just make sure that fall zone. And I understand someone could be just walking by. You're never going to be 100%. But if we see the value in making sure it doesn't fall on a property line and go into a neighbor's yard, we ought to see the value in making sure it doesn't hit a structure that's occupied with people.
You caught me flat-footed on this fall zone thing. I have to admit, I don't know a lot about that. Is it for any tower?
Well, I think it specifies over 250 feet, 200 or 250.
Yeah, I think it's actually for all, as I understand, it's for all towers, and we demonstrate that it falls within the boundaries of the property.
Whether they're freestanding or would they have guy wires on them?
Yeah, they guy wires, freestanding, they're all designed to have a fall radius.
I don't think that'd be a controversial issue, so
safety
knock yourself
concern.
out.
Okay, we'll bring that back.
As long as it doesn't retro to the people that do it.
No, and if we had the ability to hold them to that, I probably wouldn't have voted to move forward with that tonight. But they met the our land development code now, and so even though I think it's something that we need to fix going forward, certainly couldn't hold them to that. The last thing,
probably come back to be a major issue. But anyway, let's.
Well, and there's always unintended consequences, and so when that comes out, we'll hash that out. The last thing, I was in Washington D.C. last week, actually on vacation with my family, and was able to get a meeting with Congressman Sutherland. And there's an issue that I just wanted to make sure everyone knows about and the public knows about. We've got a couple of programs in our county that are tied to the national forest land that we have. And we've, like as mentioned earlier, we have a significant amount of it. There's two. There's the Secure Rural Schools Act, which last year we received about $152,000, and there's also the payment in lieu of taxes for that land. And where's my number on that? $259,000 is what we received last year. Well, Congress has not authorized to renew those. It's currently in the budget for two different departments, but Congress has, last year, they didn't authorize, but they authorized a one-year extension. So we're at risk of losing over $400,000 there. I met with Congressman Sutherland and, to learn more about it. He co-sponsored a bill, H.R. 1526, to basically require that our national forests are doing a healthy management of the land. And that includes selling trees where appropriate and replanting, and the majority of that money comes from that action and also from the taxes. And so I'd like to see if you guys are interested in exploring that more. Congressman Sutherland would love to have a resolution of support from us on that. We're at risk of losing that money if he can't get it through. I attended a committee, and they had unanimous support on both sides of the aisle for this bill, but it's still in committee, so,
I can do that because I'm working with a forester consultant now, and he told me that the state and national forests are not well managed, that they allow the trees to grow too old, and they get diseased and dying and so forth. From a professional forester standpoint, the federals do not manage their forest well.
Well, and David and I were at a spring shed meeting in Gulf County a couple months ago, and there was a representative there from the National Forest, and they have a plan that they're actually trying to go after restore money to basically do that, because they're not being funded for these things. And, you know, and I haven't seen the breakdown, but they had I think they threw out a number that the river flows along, say, the Oconee River, 3%. I think they said a 2 to 3% increase by properly managing the forest and not having those trees suck the water out. And, you know, I'm not an expert there, but this was the National Forest representative that pitched that idea at that meeting. And so, you know, that's kind of off topic, but I think, you know, ultimately what we're staring down the barrel of another $400,000 loss if this thing doesn't get reappropriated. And it's important to note that this commitment was made over 100 years ago by Congress to make sure that counties and states that had a lot of national forests would not be negatively impacted because of that. And so
It's money we get payment in lieu of taxes because they don't pay property taxes.
Exactly.
And then I thought there was also a revenue sharing, which was when they cut the wood.
That goes towards roads.
That used to be a significant amount.
Yeah, that's down dramatically. And realize what he's talking about here and relate it. That's about a half a meal that our citizens would have to pick back up.
Right.
So that's the significance of what we're talking about.
I'd support that resolution, yes.
They're good. I'll bring those three back.
Jerry?
I put out a very scientific request for a vote.
Like it only has one answer on it. Go on.
It's like so many other, it's like so many other polls. You can give what you ask for, but mine's not exactly scientific. But one thing that did come out of this is, here again, the people tell me that it's in the wrong location. Our runway is only about 2,200 feet plus or minus, and everybody else, Quincy's 3,000, Carabelle's 4, Perry's 4,500, Mariana's 5, and we have a 2,000 foot runway or 2,200, and you absolutely cannot expand it. And I'm surprised that the wetlands people are not jumping all over it because it's in the wetlands. If we had a paved runway there and we had a heavy storm, people would be abandoning that place with airplanes as soon as they could, but it's been from my position from day one, and I bought a lot in there, thinking that I might at some time fly a plane, but that's probably not going to ever happen. But anyway, when I bought, I considered it a private airport. I still consider it a private airport, even though the county is paying the bills for it. And we had a meeting down at the coast the other day, and I'm understanding that the county is saying that we're spending about $4,000 a month on the airport, or $4,000 a year on the airport. Well, that didn't coincide with $129,000 that we had spent over the last 5 years. So the same fellow said that we had spent $129,000, be it grants or county money or whoever's money. It's still our money. It's still, if I didn't have to pay that, they may be a penny less in my taxes. So it's still county money. But I was surprised. I got this many people plus that many more. Someone asked for all these to be copied. I can't imagine why they want them, but we'll copy them. But we had this many people put 50 cents on an envelope and send it to me. And we have this many more, and that was just in the beginning. I probably had 100 telephone calls to my home. I would encourage anybody, if they're going to do a poll, maybe don't put it in the Wakulla Times, because you're going to get a great response from that paper. So if you don't want to be called, don't put it in the Times. But the money that, the meeting that we had, they said it was going to cost about $7 million to do the airport. That's government talk. $7 million in government talk should have started off at 10, And when you finish government, it will be twice that at the very least. So we could very well spend of our money, whether it's grant money or county money or whatever, we could easily spend in the next 10 years or so $20 million on that airport, because one thing leads to another, to another, to another, and the people. I had a statement in here that, do we need an airport? Maybe. A huge number of people who called me, they didn't want no part of maybe. They didn't want a part. Now, Mr. Trice will probably fall over, and a whole lot of other people will fall over. When I agree with him, I've agreed with two people now. I've agreed with Hugh Taylor on something, now I'm agreeing with Mr. Trice on something. We need to leave that airport alone. Let Tarpine have the airport, let Tarpine pay for the expense, and let them fly out of it. Let's get the county out of the airport, and let's stop spending money on that airport right now. The economics of it, the state at some point in time is going to come down and say, where is the economics to having that airport? The economic benefit of that airport is so minuscule that you can hardly find it. You might find economic benefit for 1 or 2 people, or 3 or 4 people, but it's not an economic generator. That's my opinion. I have one other thing. I sent Senator Sutherland an email. FEMA, we're going to be, when you wake up in 214 and see your new tax bills, if you live in the wetlands area and you see your new tax bills, you're not going to have a good day. That's going to start your day off bad.
Tax bill or insurance bill?
Insurance bill, please excuse me. They'll get your taxes next time. But it's an insurance bill on 214. When FEMA kicks in, they have picked up probably another half. The property they had on the coast, they just doubled it. So you may not know that you're now in a FEMA zone, but you very well, if you're anywhere between halfway down from Crawfordville to the coast, you're probably now in a FEMA zone. But one of the interesting questions that I was asked at a meeting is, they take the flood zone, let's say the flood zone is 15 feet, and then they put on a 3-foot wave action on top of the flood zone to determine your cost. But they're putting wave action inside the trees. Who has ever seen wave actions inside a forest? There's people who live in the forest off the water who will be affected by what's called wave action. You cannot get wave action through the trees. You can get wave action when the water is open, but you can't get it. So I asked Representative Sutherland to see if he could find out that. And then just one item that's sort of off the record and has no, it doesn't pertain to anything. And I'm sorry so many people are not here tonight, but there is an individual in this building that is building a Spitfire. That's a Japanese Zero airplane.
British airplane, Spitfire.
No, it's a Zero.
A Zero.
This individual is building a Zero.
Mr. Busey.
And he plans to fly that Zero. Would that individual please stand up? That is the man that's building he's asked me if I would like to ride, and I turned him down. Yeah. I thought we might ride. I'm sorry everybody had left before that. That's all.
I got a couple things real quick. I'd like to see us have a policy to give not only preference to local contractors who are contractors, but on these bigger projects, give preference to contractors that use local providers. For example, if you use Brooks Concrete in Panacea, or if you use Gulf Coast Lumber, if you use a local electric sub for your job, then you get a little extra preferential treatment, maybe a 0.5%. And I talked to Debbie about this. There's a good model in Jefferson County. Jefferson County has a good model, so I guess I'll bring back an agenda item to look at that and try to get some of these, even if it's not, let's say Sperry got that job from the community center, encourage him to use Brooks, or encourage him to use local subs to do the work and try to keep as much work as we can in the county. If that's all right with you guys,
I fully agree with it.
Yeah, I'm in.
Howard, do you?
I'll look at the proposal and I'll check it legally. That's what I'm concerned about.
If our wetlands things goes forward the way it's going, which it looks like it is, just a recommendation or thought that we officially adopt the state regulations, the ones we're adopting, the ones we're defaulting to.
That's correct.
Write it down, that way, if there is a violation, somebody starts filling in a wetland or whatever, then our code enforcement person can go put a stop work order on them, not just call the state and say, hey, there's a violation down here, will you come look at it?
That's correct.
That's a concern of a lot of people.
That's good.
And that would make it where we could immediately go out and say, you're violating the state law, which means you're violating our law. It's just like a cop giving you, a county cop giving you a ticket for speeding on 319, even though it's a state road.
State and national?
Whatever the...
Code of, Army Corps?
Yes.
Their rules.
Whatever the, if we don't have our own rule, there is a rule, which is the Corps and the Board of Management District, and we'll just adopt whatever rule is above us, codified in our code where it's actually there, so our local people can enforce it. And I think that will maybe relieve some concerns about the state not having adequate protections. And you mentioned earlier about some misinformation, or some, I would say misinformation, some misunderstandings from citizens about what this wetlands thing is. I got a call today from a guy in South Choppy, known him for years and years, on Mount Beezer Church Road, and he says, Randy, let's talk about this filling in these holes. I said, there's no proposal to fill in any holes. I said, it's just a proposal to remove the buffers. Get rid of the 75-foot buffer. He says, well, does that mean I can fill in the first 75 foot of wetlands in? I said, no, that's not what that means. It means there's no buffer around the wetlands. And once I explained it, he understood, and he was like, oh, okay. I'm not saying he supported it, but at least he understood it. So I think there is a little misunderstanding up there. I'm not going to be here Thursday at the budget workshop. I think my position when Howard brought up the lowering the utility tax was pretty clear. It's my personal belief we need to stay on course, keep building our reserve back up. And I'm only saying this now because I'm not going to be there Thursday. It's a workshop, budget development workshop. It's not the official vote on it. But I apologize. I don't think I've ever missed a meeting or a workshop, but I have.
To cut his pay since he's not here.
Yes. I put me on all 5 different committees. And on the airport, one thing I do agree with you on is we need to collect those fees that's owed to the county. There's people taking off and landing at that airport and they're not paying a dime.
There are not many taking off in London.
Well, whoever they are, it's just like the boat ramps, We got that honor system in there, they're paying it. Maybe we could at least put an honor system pay box out there and say, look, you need to pay. I think very few people in Tarpine pay. I think Mr. Folsom is one of the few people that actually pays out there. And, we need to collect these fees that we've established to help offset these costs Jerry mentioned. And I'd like to suggest, I don't know if we need
We're already looking into that.
motion for that, or just...
We're already looking into that. We'll take care of that.
Anyway, that's all I got to say.
Well, I'm just going to agree on the local preference. I believe it's something very important that whenever we have jobs like this, our local contractors are looking at it, and it's a sour pill sometimes whenever they see out-of-town people come in and do work that they know their tax dollars is spending money on doing. So, but I also agree that that we have to have some sort of an incentive base built in there too as well, so the contractor like Sperry or whatever, has an incentive to use local people.
Local suppliers and local subs, yeah.
And the other thing I will say about I've made my position pretty well clear on the wetlands about, I believe that it's a property rights issue with me, and I'm going to stay with that.
Okay, Howard?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to touch on 2 things. One is lawsuits, and the other is the airport. So on lawsuits, this evening, Commissioner Moore implied or said, maybe implied, that there was a lawsuit against me by Crum, and that I signed an agreement not to disclose. I don't ever remember in my lifetime being sued by Mr. Crum. I do remember signing a piece of paper for the county, possibly as chairman, that dealt with something like that. But I personally, to my recollection, and I think I would know if Mr. Crum had sued me, so I would appreciate stopping this misinformation of the $600,000, the wetlands, and any other kind of thing. And if you want to accuse something and you have a document, bring it in so we can see it. And with that, I'd say, with that misinformation given, I don't know how much more information was given on the airport. Thank you.
All right, we got a motion to adjourn?
Motion, move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed.